Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 512. I am Peter, and joining me, as always, is Matt.
Hey, what is going on?
This is a DC Comics podcast. We get together and talk about the books we read this week, and in some cases a couple of weeks ago for a week we missed that we still have to make up for. So coming up on today's show, it's another mammoth episode. I don't expect it'll be as long as last week's episode, but we have Batman, issue 11, Absolute Martian Manhunter, issue 12, Absolute Green Lantern, issue 16, Batgirl 21, Poison Ivy 46, Batman Green Arrow, The Question Arcadia, issue 4, The Deadman, issue 2, Superman, Book of L, issue 10, Supergirl Survive, issue 2, and then for classic book, we're going to be talking about Supergirl issue 2 from 1996, the Peter David run. And then from a couple of weeks ago, some catch-up books, we got Absolute Flash, we got Absolute Green Arrow, and Batwoman issue 4 coming up. And I forgot to write down the numbers on those Absolute books, so you just whatever number it was. It'll be in the description properly, I just don't have it at hand. And then for Patreon, I'll also be talking about Adventures of the Outsiders and The Last God. So hefty list, so we won't dilly-dally too much. We'll get into things and whatnot. And that'll pretty much do it for all the catching up for that week. Basically, this was just a reasonable excuse to sort of drop Deathstroke and New Titans, which were okay, but not must reads, and this was just the easy time to just be like, well, we don't have to read them now, that's fine.
So sometimes the universe steps in, mostly towards me. Yeah. Because it knows, left to my own devices, I'll just keep reading things.
Yeah. Do you know what's funny? As I was reading that, I realised I forgot to put something in between two of your books, so I moved it without, like, just in my head and said it in the new order, but then I realised it just meant two of your other books that were on your own or back to back, so in the end it made no difference, so...
Nope. It's okay.
It's fine, all that effort. Oh god, what did I just do? Oh, my entire list is falling apart. Well, it's right, there we go. Right, fine. We've done it. We're done. I had some tech issues yesterday. I think an old hard drive is dying, which is not the end of the world, but it was just a pain having to deal with it. So that kind of got in the way of anything I was doing on Thursday, because we're recording this a day earlier, everyone, than normal, because of the July 4th this weekend. I mean, I don't care about July 4th, but Matt's got like 10 hot dogs to eat or something. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to watch Jaws. It's Jaws Day. That's what I'm celebrating this year.
It's Jaws Day. Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, maybe 1 year, if things get really bad, Matt, you can just actually go to shark-infested waters and throw yourself in and just really live the experience.
Yeah, I'm not that lucky like the Kittner boy. I'd go unscathed.
Oh dear. Yeah. Also worth mentioning briefly, we won't talk about it much because we got a big show, but we didn't talk about the Supergirl movie last week because I hadn't done the big review yet. In fact, I even hadn't seen the movie yet last week when we recorded. When this goes out, I think it's like a 2-hour and 20-minute review with David on Collector's Cut will be on the Mail Fuzz YouTube channel or the Collector's Cut audio feed, whatever sounds more appealing if you want to go check that out. And you've heard David on this show a couple times, so you know his voice as well. But it was a hefty review, and it's honestly, Matt, the most worrying thing about that movie to me was when I saw your rating on Letterboxd, because if I see you give something a 7, if Matt gives something a 7, I'm like, oh no, it must be bad, and it wasn't bad. It's okay.
It's fine.
It's okay,
fine.
but it's like middling Marvel level of okay, and it just isn't great.
I just feel like it did Millie a disservice. I thought she was good as Kara. Like the beginning, her being that Supergirl we got introduced to at the end of last year's Superman. I think you did a really good job at following up on that. And I think her story they handled really well. The rest of it was just kind of haphazard. And like, it's fine.
It's just not a great script. Like some of the big moments don't land as well as they should because they didn't really set up enough of a reason for some of the big turns later in the story. And also Lobo is so tacked on. Like you could, I'm convinced you could just edit him out of that movie and you wouldn't actually miss him at all.
Basically, all of his scenes are in the trailers and TV spots. So just think, anytime you see him there, it's really that's kind of it. Like he's kind of a nothing. Even as much as I don't like Lobo, I went in with an open mind, and I still was just like, yeah. So Lobo was there.
Yeah, just some rushed elements. Again, it's not terrible by any stretch. Yeah. It's just okay. But after how good Superman was last year, it is a bit of a downer to feel just kind of middling on it, which is a shame. But
no, for sure. And I did like some of the changes that they made for the movie from the book, but they still kind of adapted, like the space bus. Like that fight scene had changed from the book, and I think that it was handled pretty well.
Yeah, it was a fun scene. Yeah, no, it was inventive.
Yeah.
That said, though, there are some things which we won't say because it's spoiler territory, but there was a quote going around from the writer of the screenplay this week, which kind of implied she didn't understand how the comic ended, and it was like, oh, that's weird. Your writer didn't understand how the source material ended. Oh, oops.
So that so that final page has been going around. And it was like, it was right in front of you.
It's such a blunder. It's
not like, it's not a nuanced take. Like Tom King is very, very adamant about what the ending
very clear. It's very
is.
Clear. Yeah, it's if you're paying half attention, it's very clear. It's really weird. It's funny though, because we reviewed the 84 Supergirl, and at the end of the 2026 review, I said, objectively, the new one is a better movie, but it's not by that much, and that's kind of weird. Like you were kind of expected to be this big leap, but in some ways the 84 one might actually be more fun to watch because it's kind of cheesy and silly and got some weirdness to it, whereas the modern one's objectively better but a bit blander. It's just not as interesting, and that's a shame.
Bland is the best way to describe it, and I think the parts that really stand out do stand out. It has its peaks aren't that high, but its valleys are that low, if that makes a lot of sense. So it makes the peak seem that much bigger. But I do say the performances I thought were pretty good. I know a lot of people have come down on was it Krem? But I thought his character was one note, and that one note was he just sucks. And I don't mean like as a character, he's just a terrible being. And I think that really landed. And for the story that they're telling, I think kind of less nuance and kind of a more caricature kind of works for what they're going for. So that wasn't slight. It was how we got from point A to B and some of the other things.
Yeah, just some rushed kind of methods to make things stick together that wasn't very satisfying. And also it needed like a main theme, like a main Supergirl theme, and it just did not have that. Instead it had a soundtrack of songs. The
entire marketing was about Blondie's Call Me, and Kara is wearing a Blondie shirt. And not one Blondie sound drop in the movie. Well,
I mean, the main trailer I kept getting was the Broken Hearted song, and that's not in the movie either. It's just in the trailer, which is fair enough. Like that's fine, but
but like I figured that would have been kind of her theme, because the theme of that song, and it was in the trailer. No, but it needed
a score though. It needed like a proper main theme from a score that could play in a couple of pivotal moments, and it felt so absent in a couple of moments. When she first does something heroic or puts on the suit or whatever it is, and it's like, where's the main theme? So it just things like that. Just all these things kind of add up to being a little bit lesser overall, which is a shame. So hey, that's what it is. Yeah. But like I said, talked about that for about 2 hours and 20 minutes over a Collector's Cut, so you can go check out that for the full scoop.
So I didn't put up a blurb because I was still processing it, and I went to wrestling on Sunday, and one of my friends who follows my letterbox went, I was looking for your thoughts on Supergirl, and there was nothing there, and now I feel robbed. And I was like, Cody, what do you want me to tell you? It was fine. Like, I don't know what else to put. And he goes, yeah, that's fair. And I expected him to push back, but he was like, usually there's a blurb with your star rating. I didn't know what to make of it. So,
Yeah. For the record, though, I gave it a 6.5 for anyone who's curious about my rating. But yeah. So wish it was higher, but hey, it is what it is.
Me too.
All right, well, we'll get into things then. We will look at the Kindle rankings, formerly known as the ComiXology Top 10. Matt can have a guess at what he thinks the number 1, 2, and 3 DC books are for this week, and if indeed that number 1 is also just number 1 in general. So
yeah. So guessing, I am going to guess because Batman sells and it's Fraction Batman, so that's a good thing. I'm going to guess that Batman 11 is number 1. And then I'm going to guess that Absolute Martian Manhunter, being the finale, comes in at a steady number 2 over everything. I wouldn't be surprised if a Marvel book sneaks into the top 3, but I don't know which one because I'm scrolling and I don't see too many like events, but it might be buried.
But you could just guess what the next DC book is.
So the next, I'm gonna just go with the Absolute and go with Absolute Green Lantern as number 3.
You're pretty correct. The only thing you're wrong about is a Marvel book slipping in. So number 1 is Batman. Number 2 is Martian Manhunter, or Absolute Martian Manhunter, I should say. Number 3 is Absolute Green Lantern. 4 is JSA.
What?
I know but that's been doing well every month.
Hey,
I know, weird. 5 is X-Men United. 6 is Amazing Spider-Man. 7 is What If Secret Wars. 8 is Fantastic Four. 9 is Iron Man. And 10 is Mortal Thor. So Marvel had the bottom 6 of the top 10. DC had the top 4. So interesting split this week on that. Outside the top 10, Deadman is at number 11. Supergirl Survives at number 13. Arcadia at 14. Batgirl at 16, Book of L at 17, Poison Ivy at 19. So, yeah, interesting to me that Supergirl Survive is actually above, say, Batgirl and a couple of things. That's interesting to me. Just curious. Yeah. Like Arcadia is one thing because that's got Batman in it, but Supergirl Survive is a bit more noteworthy, I think. But yeah, there you go. That's the Kindle rankings for the week. Absolute books still sell, but not as well as Batman does. This is the lesson. So there you go. All right, so we got a lot of books to talk about this week. So let's get fired into them. Starting off with the Batman issue 11, legacy number 939, Matt Fraction writing with Jorge Jiménez on the art. So this issue, it's got a lot of things going on, actually. There's a few different sort of things it's picking up on. Mainly the crime syndicate who want to have Bruce Wayne killed, and they hired this assassin lady, and they're disappointed that she failed. They basically try and do a what's it called in John Wick when it's like, hey, put out a bounty for all the assassins.
Oh God, he's Excommunicado.
Excommunicado. Yeah. They basically say, hey, we'll just put out an open bounty for everyone to compete. May the best killer win. But when the guy who's tasked with telling her this, that, hey, it's an open contract now and, like, you know, that's it, she just whips out the katana and just slices this dude in half. It's just like nothing. I enjoyed this.
Yes.
He's sniveling. It's a fine moment. And I especially like that page after the title page where the police are putting like a blanket or like some sheets over the corpse, but because he's like in two parts at an awkward angle, there's two sheets in a really weird position. Just a simple little thing to suggest what's under those sheets without showing you too much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and also his bottom half is pointing up and his top half is face down. So like it is an impossible angle as well.
Yeah, unless you're Ragman or something.
Yeah.
Actually, what was I saying? Ragman. I'm thinking of the contortion. There's a contortion-y one who does the Ragdoll. Is that who I'm thinking of?
Ragdoll.
Ragdoll, not Ragman.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm getting my rag people
Although
mixed up.
when you said Ragman, my head saw Ragdoll.
Sure.
And
yeah, I mean,
so I didn't even think.
Look at us. We're confusing two D-listers with each other with similar names. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. So Penguin's basically kind of sick of this whole Minotaur business and the fact that all of the crime families are all sort of tied up in his web of crime systems. And he's basically like, hey, these new people have got all these new ideas and it's been very profitable. We've all been very tempted because they're making us lots of money. But this showed them how, like, what the old ways are in Gotham. So it kind of sounds like Penguin's trying to stage a bit of a revolt against this new crime sort of... It's not even crime family, like Minotaur, like crime... Like, I don't know, the crime triumvirate, whatever we're calling Minotaur's, like, layer on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's interesting enough. But again, a couple of little standalone scenes here early on. Also, remember how... Dr. Zeller heard that Robin was Bruce Wayne's son.
Yes.
Well, Bruce comes crawling to her office to try and like explain how that came to be. He's like, well, you see, his mother was from a different world, and she tried to train him in all these ways and whatnot. And I thought maybe the pointy eared dude, maybe he would be able to help, because I didn't know what to do with him. He was just like a crazy little monster. I don't know what to do.
I know that Bruce's point is trying to breeze us over with her. But saying I hired Batman to trade my son because he's a little bit wild, I don't think helps his case at all. Like, it makes him seem that much more detached from reality as a rich guy. But I do love his story. He does not tell any lies, right? Like, yeah, Talia is an aristocrat. He admits
some truths for sure, but doesn't tell any lies technically.
Yeah, exactly. And so I love that. I love seeing their story told in that way. And we get like this really great Jiménez page of the history of Talia and Roz and Batman and Bruce. And I want to give Jiménez credit too for having the strength to not draw Batman wearing the cowl while he is getting into bed with Talia on that page. Like you see the cowl when the famous image of him fighting Roz in the desert with the sword, and then just right below that, he's bedding Talia, but it's Bruce Wayne. It's not Batman. So again, great restraint shown by the creative team there, because I know that's an image people love to draw.
Minor nitpick though, I would say, is on a couple of those panels with Batman in these flashbacks, he's still wearing basically the modern day suit as best as I can tell. So little nitpick, yeah, little nitpick, not a big deal, but it's there. So the whole point of this is that he's trying to basically, because Zeller's kind of sitting all not doing work and kind of out of it, and he's trying to like say, hey, people need you to do what you're here to do. You've got a purpose, you're good at it, you can get results, get back on your feet. It was kind of funny to me though that whole cliffhanger where she heard the whole father thing, that was like 4 issues ago now. you know? It's been some time.
that's another thing that I like that they do, and on this one where they have a 4 issues ago, 6 issues ago, that they're reminding you when this stuff happened. And they're using, instead of like doing editor's note, it's a caption box, which I think is pretty cool,
Yeah. So the other thing here is that the cop that was killed by Savage because he was going to, or he refused to say that Batman was the one that didn't shoot someone, or you know what I mean, like he was going to be part of Savage's whole corruption and cover up, and he didn't, so he's been killed for it. And the widow of this cop chastises Gordon and Bullock at the funeral for this, and saying that they used to be real cops, and they're kind of left standing there looking at each other like, do we need to like kind of get more involved? Do we have to do something about this? Because we're kind of just living with this like happening, and Gordon's got a lot of reasons to be personally invested right now. I mean, as he points out like a couple of pages later, his daughter's in prison, as he phrases it as Vandal Savage has my daughter. That is the way he phrases that, not she's in prison, Vandal Savage has her. So
because that is the truth. Also, I like the culture in Gotham amongst the police was the widow's like, look, he wasn't the cleanest cop, but he was a good cop. And in any other city, not being a clean cop would disqualify him from being a good cop, but not in Gotham. That means he'll look the other way for certain things, but he's ultimately a good man. And so I do love that it shows the shades of gray that exist in Gotham, and also where that puts Gordon and Bullock here, because Gordon's still employed. Savage has his daughter, but Bullock is an outsider, right? He has the private detective, so he has a little bit more leeway here too to fill that guilt. So I do love that that scene ends on them like kind of like, what have we become?
Yeah, and what are we going to do about it? If we let too many things slide, do we have to fight back more, kind of thing? And Bullock kind of gets an opportunity to maybe help with this, because the kid and the reporter show up saying, hey, they want to have our head because we've got footage of what actually happened with the Savage planting evidence. Like, so this is again calling back to something that wasn't brought up last issue. It was a couple issues ago that we last heard about this, but it's nice that there's a good sense of continuity to everything going on in Batman right now.
I like the pacing because it makes it feel sprawling, but not epic. Like, this doesn't feel like huge. and like world shaking in Gotham. It just feels like these are the current events that are going on, and it makes it feel like it's citywide, feeling all of these threads start to get pulled together, which is a nice little touch. And it's kind of what I remember reading during Brubaker's Daredevil. I feel like he used a similar way to get scope, to show all the different things Matt was up to, all the stuff that were, that were in play with the Kingpin and stuff. And you just apply that logic to Gotham and it still works because it's Gotham instead of New York. But yeah, it's a really nice narrative piece.
Yeah, so when we go back to Batman, he can't just go into the crime scenes anymore because, he's not welcome by Savage's police.
Well, yeah, there's an open target on him. Like, if he jumps down, he's getting shot at.
So he's using, like, fancy, like, goggles, which are, like, kind of, there's kind of reading lips or picking up sound, and he's seeing through the walls. He's basically designed like goggles that give him like X-ray vision and super hearing, so he can look at crime scenes.
They're essentially bat meta glasses, right?
Yeah. So he's watching this crime scene. He's trying to like figure out what's happened here with this assassin lady, and then she shows up behind him, up in the building here, and we get a very cool action sequence where they dive down to another window. They're going through the air over like a party that's happening down below, and they end up on a roof, and his cape comes flying off, and they have a fight, and it's all done without any dialogue, without any narration. It is a completely silent 3 or 4 pages of just well-paced action, and it feels like a very even match in a lot of ways, although ultimately he ends up grabbing her by the neck and these electric gloves start turning on to be like, all right, like I've got you now, we're going to quit this. However, ruining this is the SWAT team. Savage's SWAT team shows up.
The Tuco.
Yeah, and has him at gunpoint with all the red laser sights. So he basically has to make a choice here. And Savage is just like, waiting for, shoot him. I don't care about anything else, just shoot him. So he has to let go. Yeah. He has to drop the smoke pellets, and we get a cool like action bit here where he dives out of the building with his cape still off, but he puts his cape on like mid-air so he can glide after he's got it on. So it's a nice little cool beat.
Yeah. So him and the what's it called? She's called the Ojo.
The Ojo.
So he goes and throws the smoke pellets down as he goes to throw them. Like I think that they're smoke pellets anyways. She turns into that flock of birds, and then there's this great, gunfire coming out through the broken window, and then like a flashbang, and then Batman and the birds coming out through the window. Like, it is a very like darkly funny action sequence, and that leads to what you're talking about, where he jumps out the window, throws his cape on to glide with those birds around him, and it makes him surrounded by those birds, is I guess because it's similar to the bats, makes for a really cool image. Like that entire fight, like the chase sequence when she's chasing him as the birds, and then when she lands and becomes the lady and they're fighting and she turns back into birds, it's really fun. Like, and the way that Jiménez draws the action and you're able to follow, it's real cool.
Oh, it's very well paced, and like that chase happening over the top of like a skylight where there's like some sort of fancy gala or something going on underneath just looks really good. It really builds this sense of space and atmosphere. So yeah, back at the well, I'll call it the cave. I mean, it's the bunker technically, but I'll just call it the cave. Damien's like, all right, let me get this straight. So there's one group of assassins that tried to kill the doctor lady, Dr. Zeller, on your date, but there was also this bird lady assassin, Ojo, who came to kill you, and we have no idea who hired her. And Bruce is just like, it wasn't a date. But yes, technically this is the state of the events. Yes, someone hired this assassin to get me, and I don't know who it was. And it's also unclear. I mean, it seems clear that she's going after Bruce, but she did attack Batman here, which makes me wonder: does she know Batman is Bruce, or is this like a preemptive thing because Batman has saved him in the past or whatever? Yep. So curious.
Also, when he goes to the 000s, we're hired to kill your new girlfriend, not my girlfriend. And he goes, simultaneously while you're on a date, wasn't a date. And the way that the dialogue is Bruce's comments are very small in comparison. So it's like under his breath, which is a lot of fun. And then Damien's reading The Great Gatsby, and Bruce picks up on that.
He's not impressed with it either, may I add. No.
And he goes, it doesn't have like the layers that something of Russian or of what does he say? The I'm looking for it here. Oh, the soul of the classic Arabic writers. And I was like, oh, you pretentious little. Like, come on now. And then I think it's funny because The Great Gatsby is a story about opulence and wealth and the corrupting factor of envy and jealousy and whatnot. And when you think about what the Minotaur represents, how essentially he's using capitalism as a weapon and as a cudgel in all of this. Again, I think it's a smart thing to remind us of The Great Gatsby as the story unfolds. But yeah, him talking about he read it when he was 6 and he's not any more impressed now than when he was 6. And it's just like, I know people like Damien that say stuff like this, and I'm like, he's even irritating on the page, you know?
Yeah, but the people who you know that says things like that are like twice his age at least.
Yes. Yeah, they're not 14 and already read The Great Gatsby twice.
Yeah,
you know?
You're thinking of someone who's like 30 saying, "Oh, I read it when I was 18, and I'm not any more impressed." Like, no, this is a bit different. He's already far ahead of the curve. Anyway, the book ends with the doorbell going, and they sort of look at each other like, "We have like sensors and like defenses so we know if anyone's coming long before they get to the door." Well, what do we do? It's like, well, I think we answer it. That's what people do when the doorbell rings, and they go to answer. And the last page here is definitely like wait, what? So a woman shows up claiming to be Verity Pennyworth, and she says that she's going to be the new Major Domo. I'm not going to lie, I had to look up what Major Domo meant, because I don't know what that word meant. And she's like, "Oh, I'm from the Society of the Midnight Key," and I'm like, "What, a secret society of butlers? You've been sent to replace Alfred?" First of all, Alfred's been dead for like a year in universe now by this point. Like, what took you so long? So, I don't know. But wild.
And if there's a secret society, why are they sending them? Right? Because it's not like Alfred was sent to the Waynes because, it's not like Thomas Wayne was secretly fighting crime through his medicine, his doctoral practice.
Oh, true. He was the butler before any Batman things ever happened, long before. For point number one, maybe this is something that Alfred wasn't attached to in any way, which honestly, I prefer that because it's weird to say he was at this point, retconning that. Two, is she really a Pennyworth? Well, that remains to be seen. We'll find out.
I'm willing to bet that Pennyworth is a title, although she does say my great uncle. So maybe she is, right? So this would be Alfred's niece's or nephew's daughter,
sure.
Down the line. So if she actually is a Pennyworth, but I was also wondering if Pennyworth was a title and not just like a, last name.
Yeah. And it begs a lot of questions. Okay, so she got past all these defenses, which implies a lot of like advanced skills that a butler wouldn't have, which would maybe suggest that she does know that Bruce is Batman and she was able to get around all those things. But let's say she doesn't. In which case, why has she been sent if she doesn't know about that? So, lots of questions here that I'm sure will all be addressed as we go forward.
Yeah, you brought up a John Wickiness thing with the excommunicado. This feels like the staff at the hotel, right?
A little bit, yeah.
They're sworn to secrecy, and it's their job to help the people that are doing this, And in this case, maybe it is to make the world for the better, right? Yeah. That's what this order is.
However, there's not been anything like this before, so I'm going to need a damn good explanation of why they're getting involved now and what they've been up to before now. Is this something relatively new that was started, maybe because of Alfred? Maybe Alfred inspired something that led to this, I don't know, but very curious to see where he goes with this. I don't necessarily like it or dislike it. Honestly, it's such an open cliffhanger that everything depends on what he does with it in the next couple issues. What does it actually mean? What's the explanation behind it? Is she really a Pennyworth? And if so, is she going to be a new recurring character? Is she going to actually be serving as the new butler? All these things. In time, I need to know all the answers before I can say if I like this or not. Right now, it's just kind of it's a woman saying she's a Pennyworth that we've never met before. All right, well, I guess. But to be fair, the book's been really good so far, up until issue 11, and I like all the world building and the constant sense of things going on in Gotham, and the fight scene was great in this issue. So there's lots of reasons to have confidence. But yeah, I have no idea how to feel about this specific development just because of this page right now.
I have no reason to doubt the creative team. I have no reason to doubt Fraction. Everything that he's thrown in there, so far has landed. And when we're dealing with this secret cabal of business associates and criminals,
That's the other possibility here, is that this is like the counter to that. It's like this is like they're the force fighting for good when the secret cabals try to ruin the world with capitalism. This is the force trying to resist against that in some way or other.
Yeah, the socialist side of things. She's here to redistribute Bruce's wealth, and put it to good use. Which again, one of his sons has already done. Dick Grayson's done that over in Bloodhaven, so maybe that's why they haven't stopped by there to do that, because honestly, he's taking upon himself.
Sounds fine to me. Capitalism resulted in me spending a ridiculous amount of money for just some RAM for my new computer this week, and I'm not happy about it. So
burn it down.
Yeah, burn down capitalism. It's fine. We can go to almost any other system. Almost.
But again, they've Fraction and Jiménez so far have really strung along the story that I'm so invested in for Batman. Like when I think about how much fun I have reading this one, that hasn't been always true when it comes to reading Batman. Like, it's been good, but this is fun. Like the action sequences, all the different tech that they're dropping in there for Bruce, like to this time it was those goggles that he's able to look through walls and stuff.
Yeah. But I like though when he grabbed Ojo by the neck though, and it doesn't explain it this time. You just see a little bit of the electric on his hand, and you're like, oh, we've done that before. The electric gloves have come up before, and it's one that I remember as well because it was one that was in the Arkham video games. That was one of the upgrades you got, was the electric gloves. So I'm like, oh, that one feels like he played those games, and he's like, I'm going to put them in somewhere.
Yeah, and it makes sense because he's a different Batman, right? He's not sitting back from a cave having Alfred, piece together things. He needs this tech to stay ahead of the flipping corrupt cops and mayor and police commissioner and everything else. Yeah,
actually, that's the other thing. There's a hint in this issue that not all is happy in the Ivy and Savage relationship. You may have some more to say on that come Poison Ivy time, but there was a little hint there of that in this issue, which is interesting. I mean, Savage basically just says she can go F herself. It's censored, obviously, but that's basically what he says.
Yeah, because they're going around through the news, and there's blips about the Tuco, which is the the new anti-Batman cops, like that SWAT team,
the tacos,
and doing stuff. The tacos. They're not good tacos. They're definitely white people tacos, so stay away from them. So they go around, and there's a thing talking about Mayor Isley hasn't been reached for comment, but Commissioner Savage, and then it goes around to another thing, and it's Savage basically saying she can go F herself. And there's a bit on that in Poison Ivy. So we'll touch on, which I do feel like it's starting to put those seeds of whatever the Ivy event is. I'm forgetting what it's called.
Bad Seeds. It's literally got seeds in the title.
It's actually just called Bad Seeds. Yeah. So they're starting to deposit those in there with Pam and Savage, and I don't think it's going to be as clear cut as we think. I think definitely Fraction hinting at that here just through this background. But yeah, this book's so much fun. Again, I say that all the time.
Yeah, honestly,
again, the Jiménez art makes it that much more fun to read.
Oh yeah. It's really gorgeous, well paced. Everything flows well. It's very consistent as well. I don't think we've had any fill-ins as of yet. As not that I remember, anyway. Actually, no, that's not true. We did have that 2-issue.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no. That was Absolute Batman. That wasn't
a fill-in.
Oh, that was Absolute Batman. I'm thinking of. That wasn't this book. I was thinking the Tower with Ivy, but that was Absolute Ivy, so that's Absolute Batman.
Yeah, true. I thought there was a bit of a break.
Was there? I don't remember one.
I think so. I'm gonna go back and look. I want to say around 7.
I mean, it's not impossible, but
was that Joker issue when we got him in the vat? Was that all Jiménez?
You're making me doubt myself now, but it was possible. I've just forgotten.
Nope, you're correct. It was just because he was doing different art styles.
It was the only one that was different. We had the annual and maybe like the Arkham special. Those were different artists, and maybe you're thinking that for Joker because I had like. Again, I'm thinking Absolute. I keep mixing Absolute and regular Batman up. God damn it.
Yeah, I'm looking at 7 or 8 because I want to feel like it was one of those two. But I am looking right now. Yes, Ryan Sook did issue 8. So
okay.
But still, I mean. 10 out of the 11 have been Jiménez.
It's not bad. It's not bad going. Yeah.
No.
by any stretch. All right, cool. Well, I mean, the only thing I would say about this is that the only downside to this issue is that the end of last issue was such an epic fist pump moment that there was no way this was going to like match that, and you know that's fine.
Yeah, this ended with a sitcom with who's at the door, and they open and it's like who, and then it cuts.
Yeah, I did enjoy though. Damien be like, well, what do we do? It's like, I think we open the door.
Well, I also love there's a piece of dialogue there that sets that up where they goes, wait, someone bypassed all of our defenses and they still ring the doorbell. Like that's where it's like, well, what do we do? It's like we open the door. So yeah, again, a lot of fun.
There's a joke in there about someone who's rich who's always had a butler never answering the doorbell. This is funny to me.
I don't know how the knob works. He just standing there yelling, "Door open!"
Siri, open door. Alexa, open door. Which one do we have, Damien? All right. Well, what are you giving Batman issue 11?
I'm gonna give this a straight 9.
I think I'll go 8.5 on this one. I still obviously thought it was great, but it definitely wasn't like the super contained, like perfect almost issue that we've had the last one or two. But still, I loved everything that was advancing, and I'm just curious to see what this reveal at the end kind of goes up. And I love that we checked in with Penguin and that type of crime in Gotham and what they're thinking about what's going on. So we'll see how all that develops. Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 12, Dennis Camp writing with Javier Rodríguez on the R. And this is the ending of the 12-issue series, at least for now. There's always a chance it'll come back. I mean, it definitely leaves it in a place where there could be a new adventure of sorts, but this definitely wraps up all of the threads and the themes and the emotions that they've been playing with up until now.
Yeah. And it's never felt more connected to the Absolute Universe as much as this one, because we see our Absolute Trinity pop up through as the page, count goes.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not even like super relevant. That even honestly, the bigger moment was more just when Darkseid was in the background again. It was talking about God being in and everything. And in the case of this universe, God is Darkseid. So that was very much there. I mean, the main thing of this, though, you could talk a little bit about what it's doing at the start and what, but to sum up this issue in one sentence is after the Martian fights off Despero or Despair Zero, he basically uses his powers so that both John and his wife, Bridget, can basically just experience each other's past from their perspectives. So John experiences her upbringing and what she felt when she first met John and what she felt when their son was born, and vice versa, where she could feel what John felt when he met her. And it's like, oh, this book all been about empathy and understand what each other is feeling. Our final issue is going to be about these two people who have been having marital problems, and they've been started slowly drifting back to some better place where maybe there's hope. And then this is like, no, we're going to actually go through all these big events in your life and see how the other person felt and how important that was to the other person. And ultimately, it's like, hey, and all of this being wrapped around the idea of our son doesn't speak, so we don't know what he says. We have to try and understand him via other means. He has to find his own language, as it's put at one point in this issue. And it's a visual thing, and kind of that ties in with all the theming of the color smoke and all that and everything. So, it all wraps up together in a neat bow, frankly.
The way that Dennis Camp takes compassion and empathy and turns it into a hero in the Green Martian, right? And he goes back and does this Herculean task of making, John see, Bridget's experience, and then Bridget seeing John's experience. And that's the thing that gets them. It's not like superpowers. It's nothing like that. It's their understanding of one another that end up getting them on the same page so they can save their son.
Yeah.
And again, it's this big alien thing, but it's the most human concept.
Yeah,
and again, the way that he was able to trick us, not trick in a bad way, but to be like, oh, this is a completely different entity. But it was within them the whole time, right? It's a very, very nice story.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is the Sparrows try to show, hey, your son's already dead at the start, and John's kind of trapped in his mind. And when Bridget finds him, and that was kind of how the last issue ended, was her actually physically finding him. She's holding him, and she actually sees the Sparrow, and she's like, wait, is this the Martian thing that John was telling me about? I didn't think you were real. But then the real Martian stands up, he, pops out of John's head and fights the Sparrow, and she can kind of see that there's like this, force for good fighting the force for bad, to the point where the Sparrow's arm gets ripped off, and he goes running to their son Tyler, who's like the possessed, by the White Martian. He's like storming through the earth, like with basically a conga line behind him, collecting people and like celebrating the fact that the world's going to end if John's not able to snap out of it, and like the despair takes hold. And again, you could sort of read this, how literal is this, and how much is this just like a metaphor for the like their family falling apart, and all of that. So it works in both ways.
John and Bridget's reality is going to fall apart, right? If they don't save their son, it's going to be completely broken beyond repair. And so for them, that is their whole world. So the way that they cage it by making it that it is the world that is experiencing this, and like Tyler affects people in Japan and leaves like a wake of, not destruction, but like,
there is some destruction
and whatever,
because some people drop dead because they've been dancing without any, food or drink for too long.
And there is a line too, and I'm trying to find it, but it's essentially all the bad ideas in the world are forming a conga line behind Tyler, and just one of them with like, it's like racism and bigotry, and it's just credit scores, and in a very heady book, it's nice that they put a little bit of humor in there to break that up, right? Like, and I can't find it right now.
No, I remember the line. I remember them bringing up the credit scores. That was a funny moment. But honestly,
very funny.
My art moment of the issue is probably when, so he's connecting the two of them, and he's basically trying to get John out of the despair, because John's like trying to attack him in his head with the shard of glass, and he basically spits all the feelings onto him, right? So he can like feel the things again, and it basically shows that they're going back to like when Tyler was born. And we see like basically the semen like hitting the egg. But the panel after that is very 2001, where it's like the baby's head, right? But then like the Martian's eyes behind him. And it's just, it's very 2001, it's very ethereal, but also the fact that it's just one red eye is very HAL 9000 as well. So all the 2001 parallels were just kind of hitting me at once there with that. But it was a very hopeful way of like 2001.
Yeah. It's not, you don't have the robot, right? You have the entity of compassion and empathy, getting in here.
Yeah, you've got this idea as well that like the Martian in some way, like he's kind of represented on the blanket when she's holding her newborn, or when the toddler version of Tyler's building with the cups, it's got the Martian colors on it with the red circle and the green. And it's this idea that, all these empathies kind of exist with him, and it's kind of like that going away from him that's caused so many problems in some way, or at the very least it's a visual representation of like, he represents all of the good vibes and empathy we can have for each other, and as that's like drifted away, it's left him without that love, and this growing contempt has sort of risen within him, with the absent father, with the parents always fighting, and so on and so on. So but yeah, all these flashbacks to like when they first met and stuff, and seeing like just those moments and how they felt, and like hearing like her narrate like his story and then him narrate her part of the story was an interesting little kind of like overlapping effect that really made it all work. So it's very good. Probably one of the best moments actually is when there's like a moment where like the kid's been born, and she's like had a kind of a rough time, and she's like, hey, hold the baby, I need a break. And she says in her narration that, I never really occurred to me what he thought when he looked at me when I was covered in spit, and like I hadn't slept, I'd had no shower or anything, but like he didn't look at me as if he was disgusted. What he felt when he looked at me was, something else. It was like, I'd never seen myself through his eyes like that, where he was more happy to see me, and that's not that he was happy that she was disgusting looking, but more just what it represented by being like, the active mother who's going through all this with him, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So in his eyes, I am, we are, life is. And it goes to his boss and says, beautiful, Jones. Welcome to the, right? So the way that it handles that, where he's seeing this woman who is covered in baby spit and is tired and is not put together whatsoever, but he looks at that and sees the mother of his child. And that's what beauty is. So it's not, there's not this resentment that she was feeling, right? Because she's got the baby brain and thinking like, oh, I was so in this negative headspace that I thought that what he was seeing was ugliness or whatever. And it was like, no, she gets to see that. And that's that nice, that empathy and that compassion.
But
that unity.
Interestingly, it smash cuts to him being recruited by the FBI for this task force, and how the work starts to seep in and take over, and what he felt as he was like being roped into that stuff. And then more stuff with the backstory with the kid and like getting a therapist because he wasn't speaking and finding his own language and all this other stuff.
And that's the thing too, is knowing, like, I have friends who have kids that are on the spectrum, like Tyler is. And it is this thing where you get so frustrated because you don't understand what's going on with your kid, and your kid can't explain what's going on with them. And you have to put aside like this human ego of just wanting to fix things and just allowing stuff to play out. So the way that the family goes through this, and they try different forms of therapy, and he lists like occupational therapy and speech therapy, child psychologist. But the one thing that works is art therapy. So it's like Tyler can express himself, and that's what seems to be his form of communication. And then that's where they, end up where we see like all of these creatures that we've seen throughout the series. And he has the Martian that's made out of clay, and it's right there. And it's in that moment too. Like, if the Martian is representing compassion and empathy and all these good feelings, that's what Tyler has right now. Is his parents' love and compassion and everything in this moment. Yeah. So again, it's working on all these different levels.
I just got the cool art of like the Martian fighting the white Martian over the top of those two, because they're both lying there with the color smoke going into each other's noses, and there's a good 2-page layout with that as well. But the white Martian and the Martian are just kind of tackling each other over the top of them as they're having like this basically in inner like heart to heart, where ultimately she's going to make him snap out of it. And when that happens, it is called Martian Vision on, and it says full conscious upgrade, anti-life degradation halted, and it's like he's seeing things in a way for the first time. And you get that great page after where he's looking at her and she looks upset at the top of the page, but like his narration boxes are overlapping the Sparrow in the background who's trying to like say bad things, and basically he's explaining the importance of her, and like the idea that the people around you are what make you better and change you and can improve you, and it's basically talking about empathy. And as it goes down the page, the Sparrow kind of just sort of poofs into the thin air, where he just dissipates.
Yes, dissipates.
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, I know what you're going for.
Yeah,
but and basically this thing that we're like, yes, there is despair, but on the other end of despair, there is, a better possibility. And they say, like, like the community that found the funeral, or a community that's found in the funeral for a friend, or the mother who lost a son, listening to his donated heart beat in another chest, right? So it's like, yes, there's these things that cause immense sadness, but there's also from that sadness, you can find joy. And so it's this blue Despero over this bright yellow, right? On it. And as they talk about like the painful beauty of a poem, he like poofs out and then becomes these little like butterflies, and it says the despair becomes the light. And again, that is another way that this, looking at the world and your reality changes outcomes. Because you could just sit there and be held up by despair and do nothing with it, or you can use that as a motivator to go out and do and not let it beat you, right? And again, when we get talking about with dark side and anti-life, that is why anti-life isn't death, right? It is the state where you are living, but you're not feeling, you're not experiencing, right? And as Camp has gone through this book, despair the zero or despair or whatever has almost become like an agent for that, where it's like he's not necessarily just straight up negative, where like the white Martian's trying to cause chaos and discord and all this other thing. Despair just kind of sucks, and he's just kind of there hanging out with you, and you don't want him to be around, but you don't know what else to do. And again, for them to be able to put that onto a comic book page and then hear how it resolves with like, oh no, that despair can become delight and become something positive. And the way that Rodríguez draws her face, right? Like it's almost an art study of drawing expressions, you know? So man, just a wonderful, and that bright yellow usually would hurt my eyes, but the way that it's shaded with the white, with the blue and stuff, it comes together really well.
Yeah, the way it shifts from her the sadness to happiness, and then once they wake up, she actually passes out, and he's worried for a second, but the Martian's like, look, she just had like a full psychic blast, and she's not. You've been like getting like psychic stuff from me for a while. You're used to it. Yeah. She's like a newbie. She like that wiped her out. She'll be fine. But just but basically, what it does is that it means that he has to go and talk to Tyler on his own, and he has to like sort of basically talk the White Martian out of him. So yeah, like he goes over to talk, and yeah, I mean. Like, we also see the Martian kind of firing a beam at just the white negative space as well to sort of represent. And yeah, like ultimately, you know, it says the Martians are deadly with metaphor, which I think is almost like a meta line about everything that this book's been doing, honestly. But yeah, she
because they're thought concepts, right? So like to them, metaphor is fact, right? And that's how John had taken, like when despair tells him that his son has died. But to a Martian, death isn't the end all, right? It's like a transformation. So there was layers to what was going on there. And I like that that's how they put that together.
So she does wake up, and when she does, she sees John just sitting with Tyler, playing with his Play-Doh with him, and yeah. And because, you know, it kind of, they set up this thing that one of the times that he got angry and scared Tyler, which maybe started this downward spiral in the first place, was when he got mad that Tyler didn't want to hug him because he was frustrated that his son wouldn't communicate in a normal way. And this is showing him accept that, oh, maybe he doesn't need to do that if that's not how he expresses himself, and accepting that. So,
and acceptance on there. Yeah, when you're talking about too that Bridget passes out because she's got this big psychic thing, it is kind of, again, never having done drugs but understanding things. It has been like John has been microdosing the Martian drug through this time. So again, when he deals with this big blast at the end, he's been dealing with this the whole time. So that's what allows him. It's almost been like he's been setting himself up for this moment as time has gone, right? Like he's going to be able to overcome this big, huge psychic blast. And that's why he's able to go up and talk to his son, because he's been thinking about this and experiencing this through the course, in the events of the story. And just the way that it handles and it resolves when it goes from that bright yellow down to back when it gets to regular color, it almost makes the other colors not feel dull, but it makes them feel like, again, not back to normal, right? Like everything has this twinge of, of normalcy, which is, kind of a weird trying to describe.
Yeah, so there's that page with Darkseid, though, where it's basically, okay, so we have achieved something here. We have, introduced the idea of the full spectrum to the to the White Martian, and that's like something. However, anti-life is sort of in everything, and this is, tying into being the absolute universe, and there's just this kind of split up panel of Darkseid looking very menacing in the background, and the little tanglement of colors just pops like a balloon at the end on the last panel. So it's just kind of teasing some bigger stuff, maybe universe stuff. But there's a couple pages at the end which maybe set up some other things for the future if we get maybe a season 2, if you want to call it that, of this, where we go to Shining City on a hill, and we have an Uncle Sam character who's kind of like a menacing villain, and they're talking about keeping an eye on John Jones because of the Martian inside him. It's like, we'll have to keep an eye on him, won't we, Agent Low? So there's that. And then the other thing is that we see that he has left the FBI. John Jones has become a private detective, which is very obviously more traditional Martian Manhunter stuff. And he goes to visit the character from way back in issue 3, who I don't remember very well, but yeah. So yeah, I
got very confused because I thought, because the way this guy was dressed, this was supposed to be John, and I'm like, what? That's not what his face looks like. right? And then I looked at it and I was like, oh no, because the way that they're hiding John's face throughout all of this, and then it's just right here, City of Second Chances, and I was like, huh? And then you read at the bottom, it says, oh yeah, see issue 3. I was like, oh, that's the guy that's working there.
Yeah, because he's there to buy flowers because he's going to go and take his wife out on a date. So he goes to ring the doorbell, and a flower blossoms that looks very Martian Manhunter colored. And we don't see Bridges' face either. It's worth mentioning. Both of them, we don't see their faces for this last sequence. We only see the back of her head when the doorbell goes, and it's only Tyler's face that we see smiling. So it's an interesting little choice there. And the final panel, or the final narration box, is just "Wish me luck," as if there's hope again. And he's trying, and that's what all this was about. It was the willingness to try and not give up. Yeah. So,
well, and I like at the end too, where it shows like the bug that's on these plants, right, on the flowers, and it goes over these cracks, and it says, cracks are running through things. The foundations of reality are shaky, but it's also true that green shoots up and rises up out of the dark. Life finds a way. And again, it shows the Martian, that flower that you said blooming that looks like him, is filling those cracks in reality, right? So it's just like, when things are feeling bad and it feels like the world's falling apart, remember there is empathy.
We can fill that empty space with something, so it's not just a hole anymore. Yeah.
Right. And that's a great message in 2026.
So there you go. That is Absolute Martian Manhunter. Unsurprisingly, it was excellent. Now, is it the best issue of the book? No. There's probably like 4 or 5 issues that I think are better than this final issue, and it's not because this issue was weak at all, but there was just other issues that were just absolute, home runs, knocking it out of the park, just completely blindsiding me just how great they were. This was great, and it was well within the expectations of how it would be great. So, but still fantastic, obviously. Looked great. Art was doing inventive things as it usually does. That 2001-esque moment really popped me. And like you said, the message by the end is very, very encouraging. And it does feel like they have set something up here for the purpose of coming back to it later, with him as a PI, with this Uncle Sam character. So maybe in a year's time we'll be talking about, issue 13 or, season 2, issue 1, whatever they end up, do with it. So, cool.
I know there was no news. However, I did see a blurb saying that Dennis Camp said Martian Manhunter is apparently going to be in Man of Steel, or not Man of Steel, Man of Tomorrow. And that if you want to get to know Martian Manhunter, here's Absolute. So I don't know if that was just him essentially trying to sell his book, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Or maybe we're going to get a little bit more of a heady version of Martian Manhunter in the next Superman movie.
I don't see how that fits into a 2-hour Hollywood movie, though. But especially when it's not the focus. Like, if it was a Martian Manhunter movie, I'd be like, yeah, sure, maybe they'll go completely absolute with it. But I can't imagine a minor supporting character getting this level of weirdness to him.
I don't either, but also we had Metamorpho as the weirdo kind of in the last one. So if they take a similar track with that, I could see
that's easier to be. That's like a physical weirdo. You can just kind of see it and understand it. Like, so I don't know about that, but
I want to give Camp a little bit of credit for going into business for himself there a bit and be like, hey guys, look at this. Go check this out. Any type of attention, but but no, this was a very, very good, very a book that I wasn't sure I was going to keep going with. It ended up being something that I'm so happy that I read, Yeah.
All right. Well, will you rate an Absolute Martian Manhunter issue 12?
I'm going to give this a straight 9.
I am also going to give it a straight 9. Excellent stuff, unsurprisingly. Absolute Green Lantern issue 16. Al Ewing writing with Sid Koshin on the art. So, more Lantern weirdness. Although, to be fair, a lot of this issue is actually set on Earth, which I was quite pleased by, actually, because I was missing that the last issue or two. And seeing basically Baz and Chase go after someone who works at the DEO, but is like they suspect was selling information to Hammond, like a traitor, and
he's the one that set him up.
It's basically just this little sequence of like them like corner him at his car, and he actually gets Baz's mask off for a cool little moment. So this is all really well paced as a fight scene. But then when he realizes that Cameron's somewhere and he tries to say, hey, I don't want to hurt you, come out and we can talk about it. But when like a noise happens, he just fires his gun immediately. He's like, oh shit, I just gave up that'll kill her on sight. So sure enough, she comes out, and I guess kind of to my surprise, she just executes him, shoots him in the head, and takes his key card so they can get inside, and that's kind of it. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess she's ruthless, this character.
The absolute universe is dark. Do not forget, like, your heroes will shoot dudes in the head. Also, do we remember what would happen if Simon saw his face? Because he kind of just blinks out of existence. But I remember there was that curse. That's why he wears that lucha mask. But I couldn't remember the exact specifics.
Yeah, I don't know if
exactly what happened.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard all of the rules to it yet. Maybe there's a way he'll be back. But yeah, it's that moment. So it seems like he's out of commission for at least an issue or two. I'd expect. So I mean, we do go to space next, but we'll come back to that because it was only for like a page, and we come back to we come back to a flashback where it basically goes into the various characters from Evergreen and like why they all seem to be stuck in that town. And it's all basically just this idea of like, yeah, it's kind of a shitty little town, but what actually makes the town is the people and how much they care about each other. And it's all basically this rousing kind of thing for Hal to build up and say, hey, we're not letting you kill everyone in here. And he ends up forming a giant bubble to block the blast because the Dark Star is going to blast the Green Lantern. And he forms a big protective, violet or pink shield. And it's like, oh shit, how did he do that? Like, that's super big. And the two Dark Stars that are there, Salik and that, like, they try and attack him. And, he does a pretty good job fighting them off. But she gets pissed because she's like, wait, the Dark Stars, like, were going to just kill us. They didn't even care that some of us were here. That's kind of messed up. So she's starting to doubt, like, her allegiance maybe a little bit. And also Sinestro shows up in his yellow mech suit with his weird skeleton face inside it. So that's a whole thing going on.
The Manhunter absolute Sinestro looking super nasty.
Yeah,
but,
he's like, there's a black zero at the heart of all things. He's talking to Katma, the female Dark Star here. And he's like, no man escapes. And it's like, okay, so I did not expect this issue to go where it was going to go at the end, which is basically one of the residents, apparently, of Evergreen was someone else we know, who, when Joe decides to spread the power, because, she got all the powers, all the abilities that Abin Sur had, and she basically deduces, wait, if I have all the abilities he did, and he was basically recruiting Green Lanterns, does that mean I can give out Green Lantern power? She didn't say it out loud like that, but that's what she's getting at. And she starts to spread it out and says, hey, this is better than using these people as bullets. I'm going to make them, like, the weapon. I'm going to make them... I'm
going to empower them.
Yeah. So the big thing at the end, though, is when she does this, someone really, like, sucks it all in and starts talking to her. And she's like, oh, wait, I know who that is. Jessica something. And we just see this, this mouth say, yeah, Jessica Cruz. You wouldn't know me. We're all in here together, you said, but nobody was there with me. I was always alone, maybe hinting to the agoraphobic background that she had in the main universe. And then she seems to form a giant green construct version of herself. And she says, that's why I think I'm on Mogo's side. Is that going to be okay? So, at least to begin with, it seems like she's taking the villainous side and siding with the death-killing planet.
Yeah, but it also makes me think though too, like the Black Stars are a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a corruption of what we've learned from John with the orders of things, right? And that they look at things from the dark side up. And so I'm wondering if this is not necessarily that the black energy is bad, it's how Sinestro and the Black Stars are using it. And that's why she said that she's on Mogo's side, because she can use that dark energy to save the day, right? Or something along the lines, something more heroic than what they're using it for, right? Which is going around and conquering and making outposts or whatever.
I mean, maybe. I think that's less interesting, though. I think it's way more interesting if she's in a bad place and she's basically for real joining the villain side right now. Now, I think it'll change. I think she's going to grow and she's going to, but I think that isolation and the fear that she had means she's not corrupted, but she doesn't have that sense of community that the others did. and because of
Right.
that, she's taking this for herself, and she's going to do something reckless. I think this is an interesting direction to take it in with her. Admittedly, it does feel out of nowhere that Jessica Cruz is here. Like, she was just one of the people from the town. Oh, okay, I guess. But presumably, though, maybe they'll flesh that out. Maybe we'll get like a flashback issue showing her backstory, you know, next time or whatever. So, I don't know. We'll see.
And there's the discussion between the Tomars, between Ray and Joe, about what it means to be an anomaly. And so it's basically like, they don't have any restrictions like the other ones do, like John and Guy with the red and the stuff. And that's what makes them special, because they have all of this power, but none of the wisdom, in quotes. So it's almost like they don't know what they can't do, which I really like that as a philosophical type thing.
Yeah,
right?
well,
like,
that was the big thing last issue where Joe was able to defeat Tomar Ray. It was that basically she started doing things that he couldn't have predicted because she was not having to obey any rules.
Right. And then so now the fact too that this is like this chaos with ends up being Jessica Cruz. On top of that is like, where does she fit into this with the whole concept of the Tomars? Because now you're having this thing that they didn't know what they couldn't do. She didn't know about any of this other stuff, and it just starts to make this kind of rat's nest. But I'm so invested in said rat's nest because there's all these different philosophical things at play here. You know,
well,
I almost need like a character sheet at the beginning.
I really liked that we got more of the Cameron Chase stuff on Earth. I thought that was compelling and really well done. And I really liked the flashback with them just sort of talking about why they're stuck in this town, because I felt like it was humanizing the people in the town and all of our main characters. So I'm hoping that, you know, that does lead to a nice other set of flashbacks with Jessica, where we see what her life was like, why she was alone, and that fear that she had. Like, it seems to be at least based on kind of the things she went through in the regular universe, even if the reason for the agoraphobia might be very different. You know, I'm sure it won't be the exact same event. So I'm curious to see what we do with that. Sid Koshinzar is perfectly fine. I think it's less great at the regular faces, but is pretty decent in terms of like the big monstrous stuff. Like Sinestro's face, I think looks pretty good. You know, that's proper gnarly.
Yeah, a lot of the weird space stuff. It looks really cool. Like, because again, I even like all of the stuff with Tomar Ray and Joe, like up in space. I think she looks really, really good through there. Also you kind of breezed over Hal and his violet power, and then that the what's her name, Carrie Limbo, comes to talk to him.
Oh, that's right.
As he dies, right?
Because they teased us they teased us at the start where she's like kind of in like, I don't know, like the ether, like just sort of there, and it's like she's coming to speak to someone as a ghost. It seems like because of her power set, she seems to still have this tether to the realm of the living, and she's able to at least come and talk to Hal later on.
And so Hal, you know, Salak comes through and essentially rips out his heart, and Hal goes to this place where everything's bathed in violet, and Carrie starts talking to him, and, you know, is basically like, you know, there are things you need to know, things that Joe needs to know, that you need to take them back, and that there's something bigger, something more universal. So that big black zero, Hal, bad idea zero. And it goes, tell Joe, tell her to understand what that means, that she has to have understanding before, and that's where Hal gets ripped out, because now Guy is doing his weird body shift thing, where he is taking, you know, essentially keeping Hal alive.
Yeah.
Through that.
Yeah.
So it's like this.
I wasn't
Dark Zero.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if this was referencing possibly just larger universe stuff with Darkseid, if it was teasing the bigger picture, or if it was just teasing the next thing in this book. I'm not sure. It was hard to tell.
Yeah, but it's just that, like, tell Joe that she hasn't, like, the understanding that she has to understand. So, and for that to go where, you know, what the Tomars are essentially, that they don't understand their own power. That's what makes them powerful. To tell her that she has to understand too, to add that little layer of it, I think is very curious. So it's just such a different style of a Green Lantern book, right? And I didn't expect it to get so philosophical, but to essentially have everything based around the understanding of concepts, right? Like, it makes for a weird, not a weird read in a bad way, but it makes for like an up and a down, you know, just where you think you're getting all the fun, cool space stuff. Now we have this, where this, you know, this lady's coming through the spirit realm to talk to this new Violet Lantern. who was able to save the day.
Yeah, I mean, I like. I guess I'm not surprised because it felt like we spent a good bit of time setting her up for those couple of issues where she was around. So it was surprising when she died. So her having some kind of inclusion after death makes a lot of sense given how much time they spent on her for those couple of issues. Because if she was meant to just die then and never be brought up again, it'd be like, why did we spend so much time on this other character? But no, she's still a factor. She's still popping up in this unique way. So it's like, okay, all right, this is what they were setting up with that, and we can see where that goes. But no, I mean, it's an interesting book. Like I say, I was really happy to get some of the Earth stuff again, and I think sort of grounding some of the crazy sci-fi stuff with, like, you know, this townsfolk and what they actually mean to each other and how that'll still become a factor. And then also, obviously, the chase stuff, but the conspiracies and all that. Like, I think that's like a nice balance to all the crazy space. Like, oh, we're all glowing different colors, and we're talking about the rules and the zero and all the different things that are here that aren't the same as the regular universe. So, yeah, I thought it was a solid issue. This book. I think if you've been liking this book, I think this issue is a solid one. I think if you didn't like what this book set us up to do, you're still going to hate it. So, yeah,
absolutely. And that wasn't a pun, but yeah, it's definitely. I just want to know what Darkseid's plan was by putting all the Green Lantern characters in one town. Like, all the human Lantern characters,
I don't think
are in that evergreen.
Yeah, I don't think when he created his universe, I don't think he went into the minutia and actually said where people are going to live.
It is a little bit weird, though, right? Like, I think, all of them who are from different neck of the woods, usually. There
could be reasons for it that are explained, or it could just be a convenient thing for writing a story where we get them all pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, true. Absolutely. It's one of those that, you know, had it wasn't Jessica Cruz being the next one to pop up, I was like, man, is she from Evergreen too? Okay. Like, it's amusing to me.
I mean, you could argue that because it's still tied to the regular universe, that it inherently put them all together naturally because it's building off the blocks of what the universe is supposed to be normally, but with Darkseid's twist on it. So inherently characters who are supposed to find each other still find each other. And that's why they all ended up in the same place. But I'm maybe reaching there just for the sake of explaining that. All right, Matt, what do you give an Absolute Green Lantern?
7.5.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it's close to the. It's like it's sitting on the precipice, but it's not quite hitting it.
Had the art been different, maybe it might have pushed it a little over. But yeah.
All right, Batgirl, issue 21, legacy number 226, Tate Brombal, writing with Stephen Segovia on the art. So this issue picks up from the cliffhanger that there was a trigger phrase that put Cassandra into kind of like a deep sleep, inner mind kind of thing from this the Forget Me Man or Forget Me Not Man or whoever.
Dr. Forget Me Not.
Dr. Forget Me Not. Thank you. So. You know what? I was like, I enjoyed the last issue, the crime scene, like the mystery of it, and like the external stuff of like Gordon trying to like hold the police off as long as possible. I liked all that, and I was just slightly worried though that we were going to do weird mind stuff, and that was going to like sort of just be the new version of we're doing the fantasy thing from before.
Yeah.
I'm happy to say that my fears were unfounded because we are in her mind for all of her stuff. We still equally focus on what the other characters are doing in the real world, and the fact that they've got an unconscious Cassandra and there's stuff going on here. But I also think that the stuff that we find out in Cassie's mind is actually pretty interesting. So what this issue sets up is that this murdered girl, she was basically a rival experiment. So David Kane had his experiment, which was to train Cassandra in the ways of combat with only violence as a language, without any words. And one of the interesting things about this issue actually is that when Cassandra is starting to unlock these memories and see them, she couldn't speak when she had all these experiences, so she cannot understand anything that anyone's saying. I think that's a really cool mechanic for the sake of that.
That really, because that takes the story from being solved because she's, as an adult, listening to hear what they're talking about to I have no idea what they're saying. I have to see this out.
So she has to
re-experience it.
She has to piece it together, and I think that's quite fun. But this other character, this Dr. Forget-Me-Not, had a sort of rival experiment kind of in the same place where he was training his girl with different techniques using different things, and he was like a master of psychology and things like that. So he basically hypnotized this girl into being reprogrammable, so that whatever personality or skills that he wanted her to have, he could just program into her for that job at hand. So we basically get like, oh, this idea that she would spar with Cassandra and they'd see who's better, and Cassandra's like, oh, she's this type of person. But then this next time, she's in a different outfit. She's fighting differently. She's got a meaner streak this time. Oh, no, she's a different person. It's basically kind of like the TV show Dollhouse of like reprogramming her with different personalities for each new thing. And it's like, okay, so that's why she seemed nice and pleasant once and not the other time. And probably the scene of the issue for me is the flashback where something's going on in the hideout, right, where they're doing these things. And both of the adults have to run off to go do something. And it leaves the two girls on their own. And the other girl, whose name I'm blanking, was it Victoria, I think, something like that?
Yes.
So she actually kind of breaks down, like now that they're not being watched by the adults, and hugs Cassandra when they're kids, and basically is tearing up, and like clearly is aware of who she is in this moment. And like Cassandra doesn't know how to take it because she's never felt compassion from anyone because David Cain's trained her like a goddamn robot. So I thought it was a really interesting sequence, this idea that she wants to like break free and she's like horrified by the situation they're both in, but Cassandra doesn't understand it yet, which adds some really nice weight to the realization that this girl has been dead since she was a kid, and that Cassandra, seemingly, at least from what she's seen in this memory by the end, is that she's the one who killed her by ripping out her heart. So it's like, oh, we're doing the dark path and that dark past, I should say, of Cassandra from before she was able to escape David Cain and ended up with Batman. And we're going into that, but we're interested in this interesting extra element of there was a rival person using different techniques for his girl, and that's who this person is. I actually thought all this lore was actually really interesting. You know, contrasting it to all the stuff with the flowers and the castle and whatever and the fantasy stuff. I was actually like, oh no, this is actually adding interesting stuff into Cassandra Cain lore. I'm into this.
You appreciate the David Cain side of things and not the Shiva side of things to Cass.
I mean,
that's telling me.
Not necessarily, I guess, kind of, but it's more just that this is more about the building blocks of how she became who she was, and that's more interesting to me than like the mystical mumbo jumbo side of it.
No, I get it. The whole idea. So even Dr. Forget Me Not calls Victoria his paper doll, right? Which is another, because you compared it to Dollhouse, and he can basically clear her whatever her essence. And turn her into a different style of fighter. And I think it's cool, the different versions that we see, right? Where she's wearing like a gi. She's wearing what looks like the bride's, yellow outfit at one point from Kill Bill. And before people come to me, I know it's also a Bruce Lee outfit from one of the other movies. But
Game of Death.
Here I feel like it's, Here I feel it's more evocative of the bride.
I mean, this is
from Kill Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's definitely some parallels here. Obviously, Cassandra Cain's like first book was before the Kill Bill movies came out, but it's hard not to think about those like flashbacks to like the Japanese fighter's backstory, which is like an anime like section of that movie, and it's like, hey, this is like kind of feels like that almost, but for Victoria and Cassandra, where here's their kind of like slick action backstory of when they were like forced to murder people as children.
Yeah. And so, and adding that into that, we never got that side of Cassandra where she was just a weapon. She was never like, the way that Cain trained her was never to be like this person that hides, right? And attacks from, surprise. She was just essentially like this, a sword that you wield, And so the idea that there was this other type where it was more of that, send her into space using subterfuge and whatnot. It's like, what was going on when Cassandra was coming up with these, with these guys, that they're using kids as weapons? And I feel like that's where we're going to be getting to also, on this whole loss of innocence for these kids and going on to there. Because that's always a part of Cassandra's story. And for them to show it like all through here with this girl that, as when there's no one around and there's no expectations, she hugs Cassandra. Who's supposed to be her rival. And
there's also a dark implication here as well that suggests that this wasn't even when she was ordered to kill her by David. I mean, maybe she did, but The implication early on is there's a flashback where she remembers Bronze Tiger, who's also been brainwashed, like been forced to fight, and he has a knife, and she talks about how the knife disappears and she can't find it in the flashback, and it's kind of almost implying that she, like as a child, stole that knife and then used it as a weapon to kill Victoria. But if she stole the weapon and it wasn't given to her by David Kane, it almost suggests that this is something she did, outside of orders, and like is going to make her even more guilty. It's like, oh, like the conditioning was so strong that this girl trying to reach out to me resulted in me being an assassin and just killing her.
Oh, she saw it as weakness, right? Like, you're not a rival of mine, So, yeah, no, it's super dark stuff, and kind of, again, it's the David Kane side of Cassandra after spending all that time with the Shiva side, and I'm not surprised it's that much more dark either. Because we've talked about when we went back and read the first issue of the Batgirl series that came out in the 90s, and just kind of how dark it was from jump with what, it sets up. And
yeah, I mean,
touching back in on that.
It's darker, and it's just, I mean, it's relatively more grounded in the sense that it's not a mystical thing. So it's like, this is about people doing awful things, and like this, the main character, Cassandra, being able to overcome it ultimately, which is this kind of very empowering story. So that side of it, always is appealing. Anyway, the other stuff that happens here is that Bronze Tiger does show up. We teased him last issue, and he shows up, and he's like, "Hey, I heard that call, and I it took me years to get over that conditioning, so I wouldn't, react to that as badly. We have to get downstairs because this is the place. This is where the secret area was, where she was trained. So the other characters are going down there to try and help her, and like we have to try and get her out of this, and like." And Cassandra's told by Dr. Forget-Me-Not that if she doesn't like figure out who the killer is, right? Because that's what she's tasked with up front, is like, hey, if you can't tell me who the killer is, you'll never wake up from this. You will be trapped in your own mind forever. How true that is, I mean, is up for debate, I suppose, but that's the goal. And it seems like at the end, this is probably the right answer, is that she's the one who killed her. And okay, so what's the fallout of that going to be? And why is Dr. Forget-Me-Not bringing this up? I would be surprised. Like, I get that this is a 3-issue arc, but I wonder if the 3-issue arc just refers to kind of this inner mind element itself. Because I have a hard time believing that this Dr. Forget-Me-Not stuff is going to be completely wrapped up in like why he set up the body like this and why he wants you to know this. The idea that may all be wrapped up in one more issue feels a little bit far-fetched at this point, so we'll see.
Yeah. Well, and given how we know how Brombal tells stories, he tells them in sections. So I feel like this is just the first section of this next part. So,
yeah. But I am enjoying this arc easily the most since the first arc of this book. Like, since that first batch of 5 or 6 issues, this is easily my favorite pair of issues since then. No question.
Yeah. It's real good. I am enjoying it.
Yeah. I think the art here from Segovia is very solid. It's got kind of, again, that action element to it when the kids they're fighting in the flashbacks and all that, and it's dark and moody and the present day stuff as it should be. There's a joke here where Jade Tiger calls them tacos because like they're called tucos, which was vaguely amusing, but hey, but no, I think it's a solid issue, and I really liked all the backstory stuff this did. So, what are you giving Batgirl, Matt?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
I think I may go with the 8.5. I'm going to nudge it up just a touch and give it the 8.5. But easily the happiest I've been with this book since that first arc, for sure. The potential seems like it's finally been lived up to for me. So, cool. Poison Ivy, issue 46, WIllow Wilson writing with Leonardo Fernández on the art. So this is one you read, Matt. Take it away.
Yep. So we got Janet and Juhi going through the streets of Gotham, and what this issue really does is they are looking for Harley. So they have to go to this neighborhood that is called let me find it. It's called Throat Cutter Hill, and it's a neighborhood in Gotham. And that's apparently where Harley has been holed up to stay away from Ivy. And along the way, what this issue does is show just how bad it's gotten in Gotham with Ivy as the mayor. So not only do you have the roving gangs of the cops essentially going around and harassing people for small offenses like loitering, but you also have Ivy's team in the Green Knights going around and attacking people for eating meat or whatever type of, social crimes they see that you're doing. And to Janet's mind is Harley is everything Janet is not when it comes to Ivy, is that Ivy really cares about Harley. Therefore, because of that care, she'll try to adjust things because ultimately she's looking for validation from Harley. For Janet, as much as Ivy seems to value her friendship, she doesn't get any validation from Janet and will not alter her things for Janet's sake. And we get this, these little looks in of what the police force is doing in these parts of town where they're chasing this kid. Come to find out, this is the kid that had the video of Ivy killing that tech lady that eventually set up her mayoral run. But they're roughing him up for loitering, and Janet goes to set in, and one of the cops smacks Janet, and she gets up and basically says, "I work for the mayor in people and culture." Well, Dewey tells them that, and they're like, "What does that even mean?" She goes, "Human resources," and they realize who it is, and they start to panic, right? Because they just hit one of the mayor's people, and he goes, "We'll let this go now, but we can't be held responsible anymore." And they go through, they're talking to the kid. He's like, "Yeah, no, we thought that we thought that Mayor Isley would make things better, but she has just turned around and become more of the same," right? Like, and it's from the sense of you can't affect change from the inside if you don't really care about it, right? Because in her making the parks in Gotham better, they've taken from they've taken from like a feeding program. So now people are stealing to eat, but the parks look nice, right? But if you don't really care about change on the human level, which we kind of know that Ivy doesn't, that it doesn't mean anything. And there's a revelation in here that I feel really dumb for not piecing together. That little like sprite thing that is going around with Dewey. Apparently it's a fire elemental. So this whole time in Ivy, we've had this character that has fire elemental powers. And that whatever Dewey has done with, to essentially become this person in Gotham, that essentially she's the main, like, she knows how, because at one point they're like, "Well, what is your value?" She's like, "I'm the only one that knows how all the mayor's office's email servers work. So you kind of need me," right? So she's taken this kind of tech side of things approach, which is why I didn't realize that this was the fire elemental. And we still don't know who this fire elemental is, but we find out that in order for Juhi to affect change, she's been using this fire elemental to kind of slowly drive Isley mad by essentially doing that graffiti that was trying to, prove her wrong. And because of these two sides now of Ivy having this absolute power, not being pushed back against, and it's almost made her like this mad queen. And she's out of touch with like the masses, which is why they need Harley. Along the way here, as they're arguing in this alley, Catwoman pops up and puts all this blame on Janet, because Janet's supposed to be the one that's she's human resources. She's supposed to be reminding her of all of this, essentially keeping her on a leash. And that if they can't get her back on the leash, Catwoman will do what needs to be done, right? They're the only ones that can stop her. And if they don't stop her, there's one person that will, and referring not to Catwoman, but to Batman. So it adds this idea of the ticking clock. So as they're still searching, for Harley, they end up running into Great White, and he gets onto them. He's like, "What are you two doing meeting in broad daylight without the mayor? Don't you think that's a little suspicious?" He essentially is going to narc on him. Janet kicks him in the balls, which is real funny. And they run. into this part of the town. And Azar says, arguing again, because Juhi's like, look, I'm here to protect the system. I'm not here to work for Pamela Isley. I don't care who's the mayor. I care about the democratic system pushing forward. And as they're arguing over this, a small market blows up, and she yells, at Janet that it's the Green Knights, and she's like, "No, Ivy told the Green Knights to stop doing like property damage." And yeah, so someone else, they think is setting bombs, and then that's where we find out that Janet goes, "No, she cut the fire inspection budget for Parks and Rec." So it's another thing that Ivy has cut from to pull from. And so in her whole mission that she's going to make Gotham a better place to live in, she's forgot the actual living part of it. And it's because she's been, dealing with all of these, otherworldly elements of like the Parliament of Trees and Xylon, the Avatar of the Gray. And she's lost touch of what it means to be, Pamela Isley of Gotham and being like the mayor. And so it hints at a little bit of the rivalry between the cops and Ivy, right? And Savage and Ivy. But yeah, Gotham is not in a good place. So you can definitely see that in Batman, where the commissioner, Vandal Savage, is like, yeah, no, the mayor can go F herself, right? Because she has her own roving band with the Green Knights going around causing problems, and not making his job any easier. And that's where it leaves off, where they need Harley to save the city from itself. So essentially going to the crazy clown lady, who's an ex of the mayor, when that seems to be your only good idea, it seems like we're in dire spots. So yeah, so I like this from the point of view of them going through Gotham and seeing, the fruits of Ivy's labor. And she's not in this issue. She's only talked about. So it really builds up kind of that Mad Queen kind of vibe as mayor. And, Janet and Juhi being our human representatives, despite the fact that the latter is like this fire elemental. And I still want more of her. So we've done a good job at seeding out like who she is and why she, not necessarily why she wants to preserve the system, but that seems to be what her role is here. So the art by Fernández it's decent. There's not a lot of action. Like the big explosion looks good. But it's a lot of them going around town and almost kind of setting up into the ambiance. And it's really well handled because like there's a lot of like dark shadows because of Gotham being what it is. And it's like things are just out of reach and everything's covered in plants, right? So like there seems to be like this sheen until you look closer, and there's just like this overgrown wildness to everything, which is a real nice touch. But yeah, it's feeling like we're as we're getting deeper into Ivy as mayor, I feel like we're kind of running out of steam, because when we're not, with Ivy doing like the kind of cosmic, plant stuff, we've lost sight of Gotham. And to try to jam it all into this, despite as well it's handled, I don't know if that's like a fumble or not. It's at a really weird place for this book. But I am excited to see where it goes from here, because if we are getting Mad Queen Ivy and Harley is the only person to stop it, maybe that's what Bad Seeds is going to be playing with, is like you have this fight going on between those two, and now Batman has to get involved. And then you add Savage into all of this as well, it makes for a crazy time. So, yeah, pretty decent, not great, but rating it, I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Okay. Batman Green Arrow, The Question, Arcadia issue 4. So, points, Matt, if you remembered everything from the last issue when you sat down to read this.
I didn't. I did remember. Here's the things I did remember before reading, is that the bad guy, who I don't remember his name even after reading it this morning, knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman.
Yes.
And that Batman is jamming the frequency from Arcadia so that information cannot get out.
Yes.
Everything else was a rip-roaring of a time, and as I was putting together as we went.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the gist of like, okay, there was a big action cliffhanger last time. You've got all these like sort of the rebels, or you know, the workers that are kind of siding and rebelling with the others. Like that stuff is there, and obviously there's the death of the woman in charge of that by the end of the issue. And then the other big thing is that Batman's identity does get revealed to the world. Like it's recorded him taking off his mask when he's arguing with the villain towards the end, and he decides to just admit it. There's a press conference at the end and say, "Yep, time for secrecy's over. I'm the goddamn Batman."
He Tony Starks it.
Yeah.
Like would you think he's gonna be like, no, that was made up. I have no idea why I'm getting dragged into this. I can't be Batman. He just goes, yeah, no, I'm Batman. And that's definitely I've never read a Batman book where that happens, right? And I know this is like at the end, and it fits for that tone of that kind of 80s grim and gritty, real life sociopolitical type stuff. So I'm not surprised that's where it goes, but making that a plot point to end on, definitely weird.
Yeah, the art in this is gorgeous, and it made it very easy to read, very pleasant to read. I was enjoying all the fighting in the snow, Batman using his cape to shield people from helicopter gunfire. Like, all that stuff is great. There's explosions, which really pop against the white and blue snowy landscapes and all that. Like, all that stuff's great. The story, honestly, at this point, like, I did genuinely think to myself, I don't know why if this needed to be 4 issues, because ultimately it's just a bunch of action until everything kind of comes to a head. There's not really that much plot in this issue, all things considered, you know? So, you know, maybe in that sense that it kind of suffers, but like I said, it was an easy read though, and it was constantly gorgeous, so it was hard to complain too much. Like, it was nice. But having said that, you know, I read so many books this week, it was kind of like, well, you know, like, I don't know if this offered much in terms of story, but it is rivaling everything else for the best art of the week, and I can't say I wasn't constantly just visually wowing at it. You know, and there's some nice big splash pages of Batman storming ahead to take on the bad guys with Green Arrow behind him in the snow. That looked great. But it's a lot of fun.
Another shocking shot to the head where the main billionaire gets killed in, you know.
That's right, the Resistance Lady.
This week. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, Resistance Lady comes up and just shoots him in the head, and Bruce looks upset about it. Of course, he's not happy with the killing. But
Batman is upset by gun violence. Who would have thought?
Yep. But yeah, so he's not happy, and he was trying to argue with the criminal. Look, hey, you're a billionaire. Even like this all coming out isn't going to completely ruin you. We both know that. So why are you putting up such a fight? And then he's like, yeah, same to you, Bruce. It won't ruin you either. Yeah. So yeah, it's probably the most interesting part of it. But then, of course, immediately that woman, the Resistance leader, gets shot as well from behind. So. You know, like she meets her demise and basically is like, hey, you know, you don't understand Batman, but if you don't understand it now, you never will. So it ends in this kind of a downer moment, but So even though Oliver suggests, just, you know, lie and say it was made up, no one believes the news now anyway. Last page is him at a press conference being like, nope, I'm Batman. So, yeah.
Which again, I understand in a vacuum of this about Bruce wanting to do what's right and be above board. However, when the billionaire's like, you have nothing to lose either, you know, you'll absorb this just fine. It's like, well, no, Batman does and can. There are limits to him dressing up, right? Yes, he's a billionaire, right? But there are still things that he's responsible for that he's done as Batman that they can hold him accountable for.
Yeah, I guess the weird thing about this to me, now that we've got to the end and the big ending to this is Batman, just that, you know, kind of confessing that he is Batman, is that I feel like that if it's going to be like, if you're going to do like an Elseworld or like a continuity series is maybe a better way of putting it, because it's not really anything Elseworldy about it, it's just not in continuity. Is that really feels like it should just be a Batman story that ends with that, instead of this weird like 3-way book between him, Green Arrow, and Question. And honestly, at this point, you know, at the end of this, I'm like, I don't know why these three characters were the characters, because like Question and Green Arrow are in this issue, they're in a lot of the action scenes, but I don't know if it really mattered that it was them for most of the time in this issue.
So yeah, not in this issue necessarily, but them setting it up, because not necessarily Green Arrow. I understand the question more than anything, because putting him in this spot where he is asking those questions and where he stands as a character, as you know, investigating the billionaires, trying to hold them accountable, and putting them at odds for Bruce, right? And them almost like, to me, an ending that would have felt fulfilling is like the question asking him, well, what are you going to do, Bruce? What is right in this instance? And us not giving it an answer, right? And always having that open-ended question of what is right in this instance for Bruce Wayne. Right? Is it coming out and announcing to the world that he is Batman, or is it him still affecting change as Batman, or maybe not as Batman, right? As doing other things, as we've seen in with other writers. And that would make that feel fulfilling for the question and for Batman. Why Green Arrow's tagging along? I get that Hardman wanted to fill that kind of Longbow Hunters kind of gritty vibe, but dude gets messed up all through this back section. You know, he is like held together with duct tape and bubble gum at the end in that hospital, you know, and he kind of doesn't do anything, but, you know, I mean, he helps a couple people. He shoots a dude with an arrow otherwise, but yeah, it almost, I felt, again, would have been a bit more fulfilling if it was just Batman in the question, dealing with these questions and the ethics of billionaires or lack thereof, right? So yeah, it's kind of, I really enjoyed it weirdly until this conclusion where it just kind of feels like a big blank. It just, you know, like it's an ending.
It feels like the story kind of didn't have as much to. Well, it's not even that it didn't have much to say. It had stuff to say, but it didn't really feel like the plot really built to a climax in a satisfying way. Mm-hmm. I think a bit of a reworking would have been, and you know, it looks great, and like the vibes of what it's doing are great. But if this was all going to be about Batman just fessing up that he's Batman by the end, it doesn't feel like it actually built to that in a sort of, you know, proper way, where I'm like, oh, this feels like the epic ending to what this book should have always had as a finale. Instead, it kind of feels like no, we were just doing something that felt like almost a nothing side story, to be honest, but fun and good to look at, and then all of a sudden this seismic thing that is really a big deal for Batman to do happens at the end, and it doesn't feel like it earned that moment, I would say.
No, it doesn't feel earned, because again, with Batman, like, I don't even feel like he was even struggling with that question throughout the other three issues. Right? There's a little bit of when Green Arrow's like, why are you working for that guy? Right? There's a bit of that where he has this bit of an identity of being caught in the middle. But yeah, like, there's nothing that I would say in this that leads to him being like, I need to come clean about being Batman. So definitely weird. But yeah, it's pretty to look at. All the snow action sequences are great. You know, like a Green Arrow launching the arrow at the dude's wrist. You know, that's all looks great. You know, and I feel like it handles, you know, the question as a character really well. And like, if anything, it led me to want a Gabriel Hardman question story to see where that goes. Because again, I feel like Hardman was getting at that question, but why this had to be Batman and Green Arrow? Because he wanted to play at the politics of billionaires, you know. Other than that, there are two most famous of that. Seems to be like the only reason. So, but yeah. So, pretty to look at, worth looking at, worth reading for the art, honestly. But like, it really not really up to much aside from that, though. Honestly, by the end. So, what are you giving Arcadia issue 4? 7.5.
Yeah, I'll go 7. I'll go with a straight 7, and the art's doing a bit of heavy lifting there. But yeah, I think that's where I'll sit. All right. The Deadman, issue 2, W. Maxwell Prince writing with Martin Morazzo on the art. So I did not like issue 1. I dropped it, but Matt, you came back for more. So how are you feeling?
I did. I really enjoy this book. And this is more, when you compared it to Beetlejuice, it made it click, right? And yeah, this is a Deadman Beetlejuice book where Batman's apparently going to guest star, because this issue gets into that Deadman is trying to figure out who those demonic figures were, like those big angel like evil things with the skull faces that stopped him from ferrying that soul, and we get it opens up with a Ramakrishna explainer about the whole spiritual math of it all, and that essentially there's a cycle of birth and death and rebirth that is called samsara, which is like the whole wheel, right? Which we kind of got a taste of in Ram V's Resurrection Man, right? And that eventually, if you build up enough good karma, right, your deeds of the heart, if you fill up enough of that ledger with positive force, you end up escaping this karmic wheel, a thing that's called moksha. And so that's where you kind of ascend, right? It's kind of like in Buddhism, it's called nirvana, and it's you attain enlightenment, right? While you're filling up those deeds, Ramakrishna explains like there's an opposite to that, which are deeds of ignorance called avidya, and those weigh you down, right? So it's only when you finally learn to shed all of your avidya that they'll, give you that liberation from the wheel, right? In this, there are spirit-eating demons that go out and stop people and take them from that wheel, that don't allow them to fulfill the cycle, and it throws kind of everything out of whack, right? And so that is why it is Deadman's job to help ferry them, right? So in order to put this together, there's Plastic Man and Batman that are investigating these guys dressed up as mummies that are part of a Lazarus cult. So they put on these mummy, the mummy straps, to put up the account of Lazarus, who was the biblical account of the guy that Jesus brought back, right? But they're trying to get all of that Lazarus resin, so they can bring someone back. And that's what that Plastic Man and Batman are trying to figure out. So Deadman realizes that those creatures he recognized from this book that is no longer in print. And there's one person that has this, I don't want to call it a disorder, but has this ability that has like super photographic memory and remembers every book he's ever read. And that leads him to a memory, which we get a really good shift in art where it looks like old Silver Agey type stuff. That it's the first time Batman and Deadman had teamed up, because there's this guy that was called the Bibliophile. And because he remembers everything, he's trying to remember or read every book. So he has experienced them all. And in doing so, he broke into the Gotham Museum to read this book that was, under lock and key. And because that book got destroyed, Deadman needs to go talk to him to see what he knows about these creatures. So this leads Deadman to encountering Plastic Man and Batman. And Deadman goes to jump into Batman, only to realize that since the last time they've teamed up, Batman has put all those, psychic blocks in, and Deadman ends up having to fight Zur-En-Arrh, which I know seems like a groan after the last time we encountered Zur-En-Arrh, but it takes place over just a page, and it's represented by these doors that are locked. And when Deadman opens one, it's Zur-En-Arrh Batman in the, the purple, yellow, and red suit, standing there with a baseball bat, basically not letting him through. So when he ends up opening one of the other doors, all these bats fly in, and it forces Deadman out. So now he is forced to jump into Deadman, so he can go try to talk to this guy who is in Blackgate, because that's where they locked him up, because he didn't do anything illegal. He just broke in and destroyed these books, right? And so, Plastic Man ends up jumping up and running away from Batman, saying that he has a mission most sacred. So we go there. He talks about him. He talks him through what these creatures are, and it's from the Menagerie of Nightmares, and that they are called the Anti-Krishna, and their job is essentially to upset the balance of the Wheel of Samsara. So that's what it seems like that guy that was introduced in the last issue. We still really don't have a name, although he shows up here at Gotham University in the library talking to the librarian there, and that he seems to be a man that's at odds with himself because he claims to be a science professor that's really well known, but he's also very into like ancient funerary texts. And so as they're talking to this girl in the library who he's there to talk to, whose name is Aiko Kahan, he shifts into that demonic form that we saw and is like, yeah, you don't have to worry about it. Dead kids don't have GPAs. And that's the last we see of him, right? So he's up to whatever he's up to. It's tied into these anti-Krishnas and whatnot. As they're in Blackgate, Plastic Man's talking to the guy. They explain everything. One of the inmates gets this pill that ends up looking like Mr. Bloom. And as he's talking to the bibliophile, Mr. Bloom starts attacking. And this leads Batman to come on in. And there's this fun action sequence where now Batman's realized that Deadman has tried to jump into him. So he puts on these essentially spectrospecs so he can see Deadman. Because he said that the last time that they teamed up, he needed like this, 4-part recorder so he could, have Deadman possess him. They could talk to each other. No need for that now. He can just now see and talk to Deadman himself. In that they end up bringing this guy down, Batman does, and that it is not Mr. Bloom, that Mr. Bloom has essentially tainted these pills, and that he is putting himself out through these different things so he can sprout in multiple locations. And Batman brings up Batman brings up that this thing is called a vivipary, and that it's a defensive coating that some trees do. Well, it's not Batman, it's the bibliophile who's explaining this to them. Because again, he's read every book. And that he's taken the Task Force Z's Lazarus resin, which again, that's what they were trying to recover from this Lazarus cult, to make seeds and to propagate across Gotham. So it seems like Mr. Bloom's backing around. But these as we're talking about the vivipary in Blackgate, the bibliophile comes in and basically talks about these creatures, the anti-Krishna, go back to the morning star that shines in the darkness. And that's where we get another explainer from Ramakrishna that essentially Deadman is going to have to go to the underworld to go recover what's been going on, to find out who and why is trying to upset the cycle of samsara and life and death. There's another character beat in here for Deadman where he's talking with the kid that showed up last time, like the ghost, and he goes to see his former flame, which he's not supposed to do, right? As Deadman, and she is dealing with her depression by doing contortion, and you find out that his love that he still goes and tries to visit was the daughter of the owner of the circus he worked at, and that when he died, she has kept kind of like this love for him, and she seems to do this contortion when she is feeling sad and has this longing for him, and that longing almost brings Boston to her. But because of the rules of Ramakrishna and stuff, he's supposed to be leaving her alone. But they drop that in, so I'm sure that's going to have some payoff down the line. But it's a very fun issue. We get a lot of the kind of Silver Agey art for the flashbacks, and the action sequences with Mr. Bloom are really well handled. But it's really all of the kind of the Deadman interacting with life is where the art really comes to life, right? Because he's this ghost, and it's the surprise of when he jumps into people, right? The surprise on their faces, and him running away as Plastic Man, and the shock of him trying to jump into Batman, where the art really soars. And yeah, it's still a fun book, and it makes me want to check out the creative team's other book that wasn't Kryptonian Age, which I always forget if it's Ice Cream Man. Like, I feel like it's Ice Cream Man.
Yeah, it's Ice Cream Man, yeah.
Yeah, it makes me want to check that out, because this is handling like this kind of philosophy of life and death in a very digestible way, right? Where it's explaining the Hindu concepts of samsara and the Ayida or Avida which I'm probably butchering, you know, in a way that makes sense for Deadman and in his job as this like custodian of the afterlife, and to keep things. Because there's also a scene where he's got to keep Plastic Man from essentially crossing over, because when Bloom attacks, Plastic Man dies because Boston's in the thing. So he's trying to do this on multiple fronts. Well, and that's when Batman comes in to stop Bloom. And so it never forgets that, you know, he still has a job to do in all of this. And yeah, it's really fun. And I wasn't expecting Zur-En-Arrh and to enjoy Zur-En-Arrh as a concept, but it makes sense that of course we'd see Zur-En-Arrh in a Deadman book.
Zur-En-Arrh is the most obvious Tim Burton coded bullshit to put in this book.
It is. But again, it makes sense because it is this thing that Batman learned in Nanda Parbat, right? Like that goes back to the Silver Age of Denny O'Neil having him go study under all the great masters. So of course, the thing that he learned in the place where Deadman's out of comes in. And again, they don't make a big deal of it. It's not like Zur-En-Arrh's a character. It is literally Batman's mental defense against being possessed by Deadman. And yeah, so it's handled really fun. And as C-level characters go, I think Deadman's starting to grow on me through these 2 issues. So I'm here. I'm here. You know, see where this goes. So I am gonna give Deadman 8.5.
All right, 8.5 it is. Supergirl Survive issue 2. This is Ethan S. Parker writing with Griffin Sheridan on the art. So I moved things around, Matt, so you'd have to do 2 in a row on your own.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So this got weird. I didn't know where this was going to go with issue 2, and time skip happened. There's a little flashback to like where we left off last issue, which was basically just Lantern showed up and saved her from the scary thing. One of each color, right? All working together. That seems to be what's going on in this universe. And we see that weeks, no, actually more than weeks, it's 158 days later, so about 6 months, or 5 months, whatever. Anyway, the point is that she is on the run. She's trying to get like a ship to Kolu with baby Cal, but there's people hunting her, which turns out to be the Lobo gang. How is Lobo keep putting like in my Supergirl stuff? Like, it's annoying me.
Keep that Creedon away from Kara, please.
Now,
this is 2 weeks in a row. Like I knew they were going to show up because they're on the cover. I did not know they were going to be this much, but after reading this Summer of Supergirl and dealing with Lobo last week, and now this week, I'm over the main man. No more main man.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, like, you know, he doesn't really act like normal Lobo, so it's not as... They're basically just a gang of bounty hunters who are trying to, like, sell off the last 2 Kryptonians because Kryptonian blood is precious or something, and that's basically it.
Lame.
Yeah. So, I mean, the art's pretty good in a lot of the pages. I'll say that much. So, you know, that page where we go back to, like, her in the spacesuit and the monsters attacking her and the lanterns show up, that stuff all looks pretty good. But yeah, like, you know, like she gets grabbed by the Lobo gang and they're taking her to wherever, and weirdly the lanterns end up showing up again, so they cross paths again, and honestly by this point in the book I'm like, you know, I knew that this was going to be about her being on the run and like going around space trying to get to Earth ultimately, I think is the goal, which is cool, but I was like, I wasn't expecting lanterns. I wasn't expecting all this. And I certainly didn't expect the ending to this where she, like, because the Lobo gang apparently are so formidable, they actually kill a couple of the lanterns, including the Blue Lantern, which the final cliffhanger of the issue is the Blue Ring has chosen Kara as a new Blue Lantern. And that is the final page of this issue, is her all decked out in the blue.
Yeah. Which I did like symbolically that Saint Walker, who is the, you know, the main Blue Lantern we're all familiar with, being that hope that Saint Walker is so invested in Kara and Cal because they are like the last hope of Krypton, right? So when the Lobo gang's trying to take them and do, you know, sell them off to whatever, he gets super like protective, and that's where one of the Lobos ends up smashing his head until there's no head left, which is pretty dark to deal with a lantern, right?
It's also worth mentioning that Abin Sur's the Green Lantern here, just to give you a little recognizable names.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which again, if I don't know if you remember the last time they brought up the sector that Krypton was in, I was like, why are they bringing up sector numbers? That's not usually a Superman thing. So I wasn't like shocked that we got to lanterns.
Yeah.
I was shocked that we got to it in issue 2, right? Like that ends up being the thing that comes in and swoops in and saves them on the moon, right?
Yeah. Well,
and
I mean,
clearly something happened in those 5 months.
Yeah, Supergirl even says though that she's trying to get to Sector 2814, so it's just a way of like using that to sort of say that she's going to Earth more than anything else. So it's it is interesting that they show up and they're like, shit, we were hoping to try and help with this Krypton stuff, but clearly we're too late. Everyone's already dead. And one of them even comments, oh, they did this to themselves. So it's kind of playing into the Krypton lore of like why it went this way and so on, and that's fine. You probably like seeing a Starfire-esque character as one of the lanterns. Yeah, it looks like a Tamaran as the Compassion, as the Indigo. It's looking like. And it seems like the lantern, they're calling them the lantern core. It seems like it's just these ones. It's not like there's an army of them, right? It's just one of each color. That's what it seems like, point. Yeah. And the Guardians are like this sort of council that like just sort of guide them. Although, despite the red one wanting to like be more active and like get involved in things, the Guardians seem to be, no, we just show up and help when something bad happens. We do not try to alter anything. So. They're very a reactionary force, which seems very on kind of brand for the Lantern or for the Guardians in most. And we end up having the Low Gang or whatever they're called, which God, I'm so glad we're done with that. But but the big, so after seeing Walker dies, the Red Lantern ends up like completely giving into the rage and ends up consuming one of the Zarnians, and creating this big fire. And that's why they think the Kryptonian, the 2 kids, are dead at the end. And they go to take the Lois in, and then it's through that fire, Kara walks out with the blue ring on. Yeah, with the a leash for little baby Cal. Yeah, I think unless they tell us it happened in the 5 months, I'm going to assume that she's not been anywhere near a yellow sun yet. Yeah. Because it doesn't feel like she's had powers yet. So no. But I mean, the blue ring will also, obviously be a form of power, but obviously that's a bit different to the normal. Yeah. Also, I want to know why their heads are shaved. I hope they touch on that because. Oh, I'm sure that'll be explained. Right. And it seems like they have St. Walker has some history with them because that's why he seems to be so protective. Right. So something has happened in those 5 months. Well, at the very least, we have to find out how they got separated from the Lanterns in the first place, because why was she on her own? I mean, at the very least, she left them at some point. So that story is there to be told. I was not expecting this to basically be a Lantern book, though, which is a bit of a surprise with this second issue. Yeah. So as what it is. I mean, it was a decent read. I think I'm still down to read more. I'll admit that it was a little bit of a chore this week, but that's just because I had extra books to read for various reasons because of the week off and having stuff to catch up on. I think on a normal week, when I've only got like 6 or 7 books, I'm going to be quite happy that this is a nice light book at the end to read. So it's a quick read too, because I read this in Arcadia back to back, and Arcadia gets very dense with its words, and so this being a lot of action sequences. Well, that's also oversized, that book. But this made it seem like it went so much quicker. Like I got to the end, I was like, oh man, we're already done. Yeah. Which is always a good thing. But yeah, I mean the art's pretty solid actually. Maybe not every page is a winner, but like I mean I definitely found myself enjoying a lot of the panels and being like, oh, I like kind of the shading here and whatnot. So decent read. We're on a bit of a time crunch, so I'm not going to belabor the point too much. So let's just get to the rating. Matt, what are you giving Supergirl Survive issue 2? 7.5. Yeah, just a 7 for me, I think. But I'm still curious. I did groan though when Lobo stuff popped up because you and me both, brother. Less Lobo, the better, frankly. All right, Superman, the Book of El, issue 10, Philip Kennedy Johnson writing with Scott Godlewski on the art. So I dropped this. I actually forgot I dropped this because I was like, oh, do I need to read this? And I'm like, oh no, I didn't read the last month. Oh, I already made that choice. Good, I'm in the clear. On you go, Matt.
Yeah, so this the Mongol who was has showed up. He's been unmade. And it opens with this speech from the Book of El that amongst the lessons that Superman taught his children, the often most quoted began like this: "Strength makes monsters of us if we let it." So basically, Clark had taught his descendants, like, look, we're Kryptonians, we're held to a different standard, right? If we let power control us, right? Strength, whatever, that's all people will see as us as monsters. However, Superman's also never been a pushover. And the one way to consistently poke at him and make Superman mad is to threatening the lives of his loved ones, right? And this just puts it all into perspective of basically what Krillix has been doing, right? Using Mogul who was, right? Coming after his descendants. And here we get to see Superman kick into action to take on the Mogul who was. So he's flying around Tamaran, taking care of all this, and essentially telling Mogul, like, look at what they've done to you. You were this once great ruler of War World, and now you're just a meat puppet for Krillix. And Mongol ends up being like, yeah, he goes, my conquered and slain are with me. They serve me still, so say the dead. So he's been completely transformed. And as they're fighting, Krillix shows up, and he's in this form now that's unrecognizable. He's almost Doomsday-esque with these spires. In fact, that's who's on the cover if you want to take a look. He has the wispy hair with the beard and his symbol, and he's huge, and he's wrapped in his chains, and he has all these like pokey, like spiky projections coming off of him. And essentially he tells everybody to raise the planet because he knows Superman will stop being focused on what he's doing if they start attacking the planet as a whole, and that if the Tamaranian queen doesn't want to give up, then she'll have to give up her planet, right? And so they start that. All of the House of El start working together to try to take on the Unmade and Krillix himself. Superman ends up having a face-off with Krillix. But basically he just says, like, look, if what's her name? She's the Tamaranian of them, and of course it doesn't come up on the Comics. But essentially, if the queen gives up her power, which is the passion of the old god, then he'll leave, and she'll have her planet, she'll have everything. But with that is now he'll have 3 of the aspects of Olgren. And she makes the deal. She makes a promise that swear on the memories and of the wife and the children that you'll leave and never return. And he goes, yeah, you have my word. I only want to resurrect my family. Because don't forget, that's why Krillix is doing all of this, right? The whole world thing was in order to bring back his family and by harnessing the power of Olgren. And her name's Theander. Superman's like, don't trust him. He's made the promise to others. And she makes the promise and hands it over to him. While they're handling all of this, the other two, the super twins, Rowan and Kent, have a new Brainiac who's going by Brainiac 4, and they're with the boy, who I always forget if it's Osul. I'm going to guess that it's Osul. And essentially, Brainiac uses the Brainiac technology powers to, they end up finding the ship that's a remnant of the Unmade that's in this star space, because they're littered across, and ends up being able to tie into their programming and call the ships that Krillix is bringing in, cutting through space-time. He's able to call them back. So as Krillix and Theander and Superman are having this conversation, the ships are starting to recede. So it's almost like there's this ticking clock now. But Krillix still wants that last aspect of Olgren that is in Osul. But now, at last, finally, the House of L is together. So you have all of them on one place, which is Tamarin now for the first time ever. Osol's there, Ultho's there, the Warzone tribes, the barbarian ones, Super Twins, and Superman. And it's, Osol sees Othel and just there's a huge smile on her face. It cuts to that Sun Eater that has one of the aspects that has the dark light, and Krillix comes up to it and is like, "Look, you've strayed too far. I want that power." And he's like, "You can come and try to take it from me. I only have one aspect, but I know how to use it well." And Olgren, I keep calling him Olgren because I feel like that's who he's turning into. But Krillix ends up taking it from the Sun Eater, and he's like, "You need not die today. You come fight for me and wield the Dark Star." So essentially, he's gonna weaponize this, and we start to head into essentially the end game now, which is him trying to assemble all the aspects of Olgren. And I feel this would have been a really good series if it was paced out and Philip Kennedy Johnson hadn't jumped ship, right? Because there's a lot of stuff here that I love that is paying off, right? We finally get the House of L all together, and it's, it's paying off those teases that we got. And they're even talking about how Pyros doesn't play well with others, and he's gone off to sulk. So they're setting him up for a return, right? And that was the first time we had seen him, was this problem with the House of L. But we have Superman and all of them there together, and we have 2 issues left. And this is really good when it's focused. Like, this issue, very focused. We have Krillix invading and the fights happening and them all working together as the House of L, and the lesson of, Superman will go off if you threaten his family, right? Like, strength will make monsters if we let it. And here it's Krillix has actually made himself into a monster through this, procession of wanting his family back. And so it really puts them at 2 ends of the same rope of wanting to preserve the family. So I really like that. The art is has been basic. All the space stuff looks really cool. The fighting sequences with Superman chasing, the Unmade around and the Mongol who was, looks really cool, and it's heavy hitting. But this is ultimately just going to be the book that could have been, and ended up not being, and that's a bummer. But yeah, I will give this a straight 8.
All right. Okay. Straight 8 for that. Which will take us on to Supergirl issue 2. This is Peter David's Supergirl issue 2. This is us continuing a classic book, which, we read the first issue of last month, and we just kinda wanted to keep going. Which worth mentioning as well, some of the perks you get for being a patron is that we're working through Alan Moore's Swamp Thing. We previously did Batgirl Year 1, and because of the winner of the vote from last month, the final vote that we had, because it was getting too hard to think of options for votes, we're just going to do a second Patreon classic series. So we're doing Gotham Central, and the first issue of that will be in the next couple of weeks over on Patreon. But yes, so we're talking about Supergirl issue 2. And so we set up the whole Linda Danvers stuff. We set up Buzz and him trying to bring out the demon from whatever realm he's in. And this issue kind of picks up with kind of like, so Supergirl knows now that she is in Linda Danvers' body, that she is merged with her on some level. So now we get to see her actually have to deal with some of that, and the idea of like, her parents are showing up because they're concerned because their daughter's been kind of troubled, and having to like hide in her bathrobe quickly and be like, oh shit, the suit's kind of sticking out, I need to try and hide it. And they're not going to leave me alone because they think I'm like, a risk of running away or harming myself or whatever it is. So she has to play nice with them.
Yeah. Because secretly, it seems like Linda was a bit of a pill.
Yeah, we kind of get more of that later when like Supergirl realizes that, is that, oh shit, Linda might have been kind of a bad guy. Like, she, maybe you could argue she was manipulated and coerced, but she definitely went along with some of the bad stuff this cult were doing. Like, she got roped into it.
And it makes sense why her parents are so insistent on coming in and checking on her, right? Because this was a girl that should have been dead, right? Like,
Yeah, which is not
knowing what we know about her.
Yeah, it's not ideal for a girl who's going to be having a secret identity and having to be a superhero on the sly. You know, to having parents who are like constantly snicking their nose in and being like, "Are you okay? Are you up to something? What's going on here?
You on drugs again? You on drugs again?" You know, and we have this paragon of virtue in Supergirl, right? Like in this person who was probably a terrible person. It makes for a fun dichotomy.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously gives her all these obstacles to deal with, but also try and repair those relationships because she's still kind of Linda, even though she's mostly herself. It's an interesting mix, but it's fun seeing her try to hide stuff and be like, "Hey, can I go and shower?" So it's that moment where they leave the room finally, and she just slumps back into the beanbag, and her robe kind of parts to reveal the outfit. It's like, it's just kind of funny seeing her deal with this. Meanwhile, the reporter character who was introduced thinks he sees like the cult kidnapping a child when he's driving, so he's like, "Shit, I need to like, you know, tail this van and try and help." And he complains that the police show up if you speed over like the speed limit at 2 a.m, but you're trying to yell and like speed when there's a kid being kidnapped and there's not a single police car to be found. No one cares.
Oh, God, it's sad that this is true like 27 years later. You know,
I mean, well, for me it was funny because of what it reveals later on is that this isn't actually a kid, it's actually a member of the cult who just happens to be a little person, and he gets lured into a trap as a result. So good deeds and all that going punished. But so Linda's trying to like deal with like her memories, and she's, you know, kind of having a vision of the demonic hand of what was the name of the demon again? Moloch?
Something
like that?
Is it Moloch? Moloch's always, it is a horned god, so it makes sense that it's Moloch.
So there's a great tease here because like the Moloch stuff actually gets wrapped up by the end of this issue. The Buzz stuff is not done. He's still definitely going to be around and causing mischief. But this idea that this was all about bringing the demon into the world, there's a little moment when he's like talking to Buzz and complaining that this whole plan with Linda didn't work out, and he's like, some metahuman got involved and now it's a bit more complicated. But Moloch's like, "Oh wait, shit, like I think they found me, I need to go." And there's an implication that there's something else that the demon's scared of in his realm that he's like on the run from, which comes back to play later when the fight happens and like, they show up and get him, and it's like, oh, that dealt with him, he's not going to be a threat to Earth anymore. But now Buzz is on his own at the end, and it's like, okay, so he's still going to be causing trouble. But yeah, anyway, all this is fun, but the parents insist that Linda go to the hospital and get checked out because all this stuff she's been through, and Supergirl tries to talk them out of it, but they force her to go. And the doctor, of course, is like, "This is very weird. There's no signs of that operation she had when she was a kid, and also she got hit with a bullet when she was mugged last year, and there's no bullet wound. Something's really fishy here about how perfect her body is, medically speaking."
Yes.
So I got a chuckle out of that.
So the demon... Yeah, it is. So the demon. So I did some digging. The demon is Chakat.
Chakat.
It sounds like cat.
Yeah,
yes,
Chakat.
Chakat.
There you go.
Yes, but I understand. But I get where you got Moloch from, because in a lot of different things where you get a horned demon looking like that, it always is a Moloch, who is the horn god from, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're not going to get into that. But yeah. Anyways. Yeah. But Gary Frank's art here, it's very Gary Frank while also being very unlike what I expect from Gary Frank.
Oh, it's different time, different era, but those expressive eyes are absolutely still there.
Are all there, and we get a lot of those here. But like when we get to when Buzz shows up to talk to Linda, and we get that him touching her forehead, and then the memories that come back, right? We get those expressive eyes and a very crazy face. That Linda's making there, and I was just like, man, this is Gary Frank, but also so different from what I'm used to, in a good way. And the way that it's all colored with the pinks and the blues and everything.
Yeah, and because she gets these memories of like Linda basically taking naughty photos with Buzz, with the little person and the cult taking them, and what the purpose of this was, it's hard to tell, but. We get this fractured page where it's like glasses cracked, and it's like she's seeing like a hand hold up a goblet of blood and someone screaming in chains, and she's like, oh wait, Linda was a part of this, she helped with this stuff, and it shows you that split like cracked panel of like one side is Linda smelling, kind of looking evil, and then the other side is like Supergirl looking kind of shocked. And it's like, shit, she was kind of awful. And maybe we can say that she was manipulated into it to an extent and maybe like groomed by this awful man, but like, she was a part of this. She was not just innocent.
She participated. Yeah, because the thing that kicks off the memory is it seems like she stabbed a dude to death. Because Buzz is like, was it everything that I told you it was?
Yeah.
And she's like, it was a rush. And then that's the picture. And you look as you know, the pictures are falling. There's someone with a bunch of knives in their back on the ground, right? So it's definitely, you know, she is more than complicit here. And I do like throwing Supergirl into that person.
And Buzz is basically like, oh, seducing Linda was like easy, but you might be a challenge. I'm going to enjoy doing that. And like she's like sort of flying through the clouds at him. Like the people at the hospital are like where did she go? Because she went out the window. But yeah, the big climax is in this theater where they're kind of just torturing the reporter. And like the little guy's like, hey, you thought I was a child being kidnapped, and then I'm going to stab you to death. Ha ha ha. It's actually super dark.
It is, but like it's so funny. And that's why I love Peter David. Peter David adds these touches in the books of his that I've read that like I should not be laughing at that, but that is so funny.
Yeah, but Supergirl comes crashing in as the demon Shakat is coming through the screen, kind of Last Action Hero style, almost like they're using it as a portal to his demonic realm. And she like super flies into him to punch him back into his realm. And they have a fight. She uses her telekinetic blast. He's got a giant dagger which he kind of blocks and like snaps the tip off of. And this is all just fun action sequence stuff. I like her flying the broken blade like through his shoulder, and you just get this sort of like splat of blood coming off of it. Really nice stuff. Meanwhile, Buzz goes out and like tells the police about the kidnapping and pretends that he's not involved and acts all scared to break it up. Yeah, this was like super. I was like, oh god, you're like just instantly hateable. Honestly, like you're the most easy to hate character ever.
Well, it doesn't help that he looks like John Constantine either. So
he's like how I just kind of assume like how I think of Constantine, except he's actually supposed to be the villain, so it's working quite well.
Yes. So
Supergirl punches the demon a butt, and all this noise basically attracts the big demon dogs that are coming, because there's some writing here, some narration from Supergirl as she flies out and saves the reporter that, oh yeah, cats and dogs, no one knows how big that war actually is, because that's effectively what's happening in this demonic realm, is these dog demons and cat demons are fighting. And I'm like, all right, okay, whatever. But the big thing from her though is she saves the reporter. He's in hospital, and she basically is like, look, something put me with Linda, something intervened and put me with her, and maybe that was for a reason, and maybe I should try and make this work to figure out what that reason is, if it's going. And yeah, people always talk about this being like the certain Supergirl story. I wouldn't say what it is for spoilers in case people don't know, but you know, it's clearly starting to go down that path. And like, is there a divine purpose here, you know, by merging her with Linda? So yeah, it's interesting stuff. And we just see that Buzz is still out there causing mischief at the end.
Yeah. Well, and up to this point, right, the only like big screen Supergirl had been what am I trying to make Slater.
Helen Slater,
right? Helen Slater, yeah. And Frank draws Supergirl very much like Helen Slater on this last page. Like it is, the similarities are striking, you know, which is nice. So it does make it feel like this big, huge Supergirl. For all the new that it's doing, it's still reminding you that this is Supergirl, you know, which is nice. And then the cats and dogs iconography goes on the very last panel, where it's got a dog, you know, snarling at a cat that's all raised up on its, you know, at its back up and stuff. So yeah, this is super good, which I do know I read this. I don't remember a lot of this. So I'm wondering if I read a different 90s Supergirl at the time. But because none of this, like, I figured I would remember a big demon cat, and that did not ring a bell, you know? So maybe I read a different collection that didn't necessarily start with the Peter David stuff.
I mean, the good news is that just means that it's going to be more fun to go through then, because you know, everything will be new and fresh and exciting and whatnot. But yeah, I was surprised that even though I'd read it before, I didn't remember the Tricat stuff was dealt with this relatively quickly, even though, Buzz is still around. But I think the exciting stuff for me is all the family stuff of like, her having to like fit into this town and this life, but while still being Supergirl when no one's going to trust her because of who Linda was before she merged with Supergirl. So
right.
I think that's the real fun stuff. And some of those expressions and Supergirl like being like, shit, the costume's hiding out or sticking out and her eyes and all that during those moments is very well done, which makes it very playful, makes it very fun, even though it's doing some really dark like story beats when we get into the cult stuff later on. So yeah, it's an interesting little beast of an ongoing story that just feels like its own little corner. Now, don't get me wrong, it is technically part of the DCU, and I'm sure like eventually there's going to be a Superman cameo and whatnot, but it feels so insular in terms of, no, we've got this town of characters, we've got our own things we're building to, and it's going to be its own little thing, and in a good way. I mean that as a compliment, because it's just, it feels very contained and rewarding.
It's not solely reliant on being a super book. It is just a solid story about this female hero going through it. And you could, it's nice that it's Supergirl, but it does feel like it could have been a whole new character, and the story is still going, as well as it can. So, all right,
what were you giving a Supergirl issue 2?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
I think I agree with that. 8.5 sounds right to me as well. All right, cool. Absolute Flash, issue 16, Jeff Lemire writing with Henning on the art. So, Wally went to find Ray Palmer. Also, there's a lot more Grodd stuff in this, which we get teased at the start, actually. We see Grodd running from a bunch of not snipers, but SWAT team members to Daddy, and then it leaves it there. We come back to that a bit later. But Wally's looking at the journals of Ray Palmer. We get the Omega symbol on the journal, what's below the still point, all that stuff. And Wally gets like a psychic kind of like sharp attack because like Grodd's screaming in pain and he can feel it like in a telepathic way. And that kind of sets up things. So he immediately has to call Linda for help. And obviously he ditched her last issue out of safety reasons. So she is pissed. I'm glad she brings it up immediately. Although I did think it was very funny when she's like, where are you? And he super speeds to like right next to her, and just that look in her face of like, oh yeah, he can just get here in like a second. Oh. Yeah.
Instantaneous. Also, she's walking around Iron Heights Park, which I think is a nice touch, right? Because in the main universe, Iron Heights is a prison. So the fact she's walking around this nice park, and then he shows up, and I do love that they've made her color purple, right? Because it goes really well with his red and the yellow, so but yeah, I will have a bone to pick here. This is with Lemire, right? At one point they call Grodd a monkey, right? Linda's like, I gotta get that monkey, and Wally goes, oh, actually, he's an ape. Yet I'm looking at the art. Grodd has a tail. That makes him a monkey. Apes don't have tails, right? Chimpanzees, gorillas, gibbons, orangutans, no prehensile tail. No tail whatsoever. They're part of the great ape family, right? Well, not gibbons, but anyways, we're splitting hairs. But baboons.
That's a point.
Spider monkeys.
Grodd's dad, right? I don't think has a tail though, so he might actually be an ape.
Right. So, but Grodd clearly does. The little baby Grodd.
Yep.
Go back and look at the art. So, again, not that most people would care, but me, I did get hooked, and then it made me go back and check, and I was like, no, Wally, you're talking out your butt, because you just wanted to try to look cool in front of Linda, because actually he's an ape, and she goes, nerd, and I was like, well, not only is he a nerd, but he's wrong. So, that makes it right. However, the rest of the issue I thoroughly enjoyed. The way that Heining's art sticks out against Robles. Like they're still doing similar things, but I don't know. The way that Heining does certain flash movements in breakdowns or whatever, it does stick out as their own. So, it still looks nice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they team up, they go to find Grodd. She's excited to possibly meet Grodd again because he was cute, apparently, according to her words. And yeah, they basically get to this, they see on the news that there's some sort of standoff with police and potential primates. So, they do a whole thing. And this is actually where Linda kind of comes up with, because he says, I'll be back in a flash, or something to that effect. And she's like, wait a minute, Flash, that could be good for your brand. That's important. And this was kind of endearing. Like, it was bordering a little bit on the, oh, this is fantastic. Say that again?
Yeah.
It was bordering on that, but these are kids. Yeah. This is, when I say kids, I mean they're teenagers.
Well, yeah, kids. That said, we're 16 issues into it, and they hadn't really addressed why he's called the Flash. Like, we know him as the Flash.
Yeah, well, he's
the readers, but in the universe,
he's never been called that, though. So,
No. Yeah. So I do like that Lemire tries. It is a little bit clunky, but I thought it fit. And again, coming from Linda, I do like it. Kind of gives her a little bit Lois Lane.
I think what works about it is that Wally says, no, I don't want it. I don't need a fancy name. And he doesn't like when she calls him that, because she calls him it again later. She calls him the Flash, and he's like, nope, don't like that still. The fact that he doesn't like it can be a fun running gag for a bit until he finally accepts it.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that part. Anyway, the whole thing here is that inside this like old supermarket that's been kind of taken over and abandoned and whatnot. The cops that went in there originally have all been possessed by Grodd's father, I assume, if not Grodd himself.
Thinking so.
Yeah.
Because the eyes are glowing green, and they weren't really green when Grodd was doing things.
Yeah.
The little Grodd.
So, they all get swarmed, and Wally's trying to protect Linda, and, things get a little bit hairy when they run into a whole SWAT team that have all been possessed with Grodd's telepathy, or Grodd's dad's telepathy, I should say. And Wally actually gets shot in the leg, and it leads to him dropping Linda, and Linda goes flying into the wall and gets knocked out. So it actually feels pretty dark for a second, where it's like, oh shit, they're about to go down. All these guys are about to fire their guns. That thing seems bad, and that's when Grodd kind of like jumps out and like stops all the bullets with his powers, and it's happy to see Wally. It's a reunion, and it's like, okay, where's your dad? What's going on? Like, let's help, kind of thing. Linda's still knocked out though, so Grodd's actually carrying her telepathically going down the hallway, so she's just kind of floating but asleep, which is kind of an amusing image. But yeah, basically Grodd mentally shows Wally what happened, and we see Grodd making these like SWAT team members turn on each other and kill them. And like Grodd's dad is like super like anti-human, hates humans are bad, and is doing all this evil stuff now out of revenge. Because we see like the possessed SWAT people being like, no more men, all men Grodd, kind of thing. So yeah, so it's a whole thing. Linda,
it's very more traditional. Yeah, it's a little bit more traditional Grodd, where he wants to take over, although this guy just seems to want to be left alone. Right, like all the experimentation has left.
It's more vengeful, because
of humans.
Because traditional Grodd doesn't necessarily have like
conquest.
Like a vengeance side to him. He wants to take over. He wants to conquer, but he doesn't have a personal reason to hate humans in quite the same way.
And so, and here in the way that he tells Grodd, like, oh no, you're out of the way. You're wrong. All men bad. So I do like that it adds that between them. Is that eventually, when it comes to it, you feel like little Grodd is gonna be like, no, some humans good, and shows them Wally and Linda, and that's the bridge to them, So I like that seems like it's being set up there, because Grodd, I love this Grodd so much. Like we already know, I have a soft spot for gorillas and most apes, but this guy, absolute Grodd, since he's introduced, I want more of him.
Well, Linda agrees with you.
Going around on that,
because Linda wakes up and is immediately like eyes wide, screaming the monkey at him, and Grodd starts communicating with her and says, "Any friend of Wally's a friend of mine," and she's like, "Wait a minute, how is he in my head?" And Wally's like, "Yeah, he does that. Like it's a thing." So it becomes a whole thing, but she's the one who grabs like a bit of fabric and starts like putting a makeshift bandage around Wally's gunshot
tourniquet
wound. Yeah,
and she's like, "Oh, it's just a gunshot wound," and he's like, "What? Just a gunshot? How many times have you been shot at?" Like, yeah,
Which-
again, their dynamic is great. This is why I love Lemire, because he's very good at this back and forth, and it all feels natural.
To a point, I wouldn't say that's his strength though, because I think all of my favorite Lemire stuff isn't this lighthearted. It tends to be a bit heavier.
Yeah, but he's good at the dynamic of the back and forth, and it doesn't need to be like the banter doesn't need to be witty, but he is good at getting that volley and the pacing that some writers just,
Well,
it ends up coming out clunky.
Unless, there's a lot of characters like JSA.
Yes. And again, if he had focused at JSA, I would say we'd still be reading it. But there's just too much going on. Like here, we're still enjoying this because it's very focused.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know if I necessarily like associate Lemire broadly with the idea of like good banter necessarily. I don't know if that's what I think of as Lemire's strength. But anyway, out of the darkness, a villain shows up with a knife to Grodd's throat, and the final page reveals that it's the Trickster, who says, "I'm sorry, there's no other way. We got to kill Grodd." So, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, brings the rogues back into it. Although, I guess that's a question here. Is Trickster doing this on their own, or is this something the rogues are going to be on board with?
Right. Because who showed up at the end of his flag, right? At the end of the last issue?
But the rogues, yeah,
told the rogues that they got to go get Grodd. So again, maybe they didn't agree, and maybe it is just Trickster. And this is how we'll get to know a little bit more. Because Trickster's still the biggest question mark when it comes to the rogues. We've gotten to know the rest of them, of Cold, Glider, what else is there? Boomerang.
Yeah, well, Trickster's the one who betrayed them, and then they kind of made, amends to an extent, try to survive in the aftermath of all the Eleanor Thawne stuff. I wonder, if they all have a bit of a standoff here, if the rest of the rogues show up, like, do they listen to Wally? Is there some kind of respect formed because of them working together before, or are things still shaky? It really feels like all the characters we've built up might be finally coalescing again over the next issue or two.
Yeah.
So we'll see what Lemire does with that, and if we get like an interesting debate, or maybe once again Wally will be pitted against the rogues because they all want to kill Grodd because they think it's the right thing to do, or at the very least they're willing to follow their orders for their own gain.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, but I mean, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, I think this was a very easy to read issue. It flowed quite well. The characters were very likable. A couple of little clunky things, like the naming of the Flash felt a little bit forced in there. I think would be fair to say. But I did like the tease of like the Daddy Grodd powers, and like all the possessed cops was suitably on the slightly creepy side, and in a very sort of fun pulpy way. But it had a nice bit of atmosphere as they were looking around and searching. And it felt like, this is like a darker thing for a villain to do compared to what maybe Wally's encountered up until this point. So that's kind of cool. So, yeah. Solid.
Yeah, I agree.
But, still on the probably the weaker end of the Absolute books for sure. But, and definitely nothing compared to the other Lemire book that we're very much enjoying in Firestorm.
Yes.
But...
Yes.
It's almost an unfair comparison, even though it's not an unfair comparison because it's the same goddamn writer. It's about as fair as you can possibly get as far as comparisons go. But, they're very different books, they're very different tones and very different goals. So, yeah. But no, I think the relationship between Wally and Linda has been the biggest strength of this book, so the more they play with that, the better. Even though I will admit it is a bit funny how quickly he just called her again after ditching her last time. It felt like almost no time passed.
Yeah, but it definitely feels like a teenager who's just doing things on vibes, So, oh man, I shouldn't, how am I going to do this? I would have liked to see a little bit of him hemming and hawing a little bit. Like, I can't call her. She's not going to ever let me forget about it. That type of stuff.
Yeah, I think that would have...
It's so good.
I think that's what I would have expected, is him thinking he needs to call her, but trying not to because he feels like he's made his bed, he has to lie in it, but then things get bad enough by the end of the issue that the end of the issue could have been him picking up the phone, and like next time we'll get Linda coming back out of the picture. But at the same time, I'm glad they spent time together this issue, so I can't complain too much, but it does feel like, it was very quickly just swept under the rug. Okay, we're back to working together.
But Yeah, it also goes off of his impulsivity too as a teenager, you know. So
Yeah, that's a cop out. That's a lazy excuse, Matt.
Yeah. And again, the art, Heining's pretty good. The cops look really creepy, like you were saying, and it's like they're like I think it's an abandoned mall. So I was going back and looking at the art, and there's like those rolling shutters that go down like storefronts, and that's where Grodd and his dad are holding up at. And yeah, everything just comes out like really creepy, and it's not like it's light horror, it's not full horror. So, Haining kind of fits that.
Yeah,
really
it's
well
not moody art by any
scenes.
stretch. It's not, it's very flat, bright colors for the most part.
Yeah.
It's more of a Scooby-Doo thing where it's lots of light blues and then like bright green eyes to show that they're possessed, right? Very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, that's what I meant by like light horror. Like, like there's stuff there, and like the cops look creepy, but it's nothing like in one of the other books we'll talk about.
Oh, for sure.
Soon. With some more of the horrific elements, but yeah.
But yeah, not bad. What are you giving Absolute Flash?
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
I actually agree with that, 7.5. I don't think it quite gets to the 8 this time, just for the couple of nitpicks of like it feeling like it just kind of pushed them together again with almost no consequences for him ditching her last time, other than just a couple of quick jokes. So, there you go. Absolute Green Arrow, issue 2, Pornsack Pichotti, or Pichotti. Oh, God, I'm never going to get that name right.
Sure.
And then Raphael Albuquerque on the art. So, very interesting issue 1 last time to set up this whole murder mystery of this Green Arrow killer going after these billionaire CEO types, people who were connected to Ollie, and at least one of whom had a bit of a dodgy past with underage girls, which again is brought up in this issue.
A lot more heavily in this one too, which I was not. I don't want to say shocked, but it was like, oh wow, that's the direction.
It was definitely less of an implication this time and more just of a no. I'm straight up saying he was with a 14-year-old, and we're calling that out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Wally, sorry, we were talking about Absolute Flash before. It just threw me off.
Ollie.
Yeah, because you called Wally Ollie at one point, and now I've flipped it.
I did.
This is your fault, Matt. I blame you.
I'm sorry. I will. Yeah. I will take absolute credit for that.
But yeah, no, because Ollie's confronted by I forget her name right now, but the young character.
It's Mia. So,
Mia.
Yeah, we're getting the second Speedy. We're getting all of these. I will give Pinchotti, this credit for rolling through these Green Arrow characters, and they're feeling all unique and distinct.
Yeah, I will say, Matt, it's definitely not Pinchotti. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, Pinchotti. It's weird for me to call him Pornsack because that sounds like it's a nickname that we gave him because he showed up with a bunch of nudie mags.
Yeah. Also, his initials don't work either. It just sounds like we're making fun of him.
No. The writer.
Well, why don't we just call him Shot? Because he's got that shot there in his name.
Yes,
right.
Shot.
He's just Shot. Right.
Yes.
There we go. That's cool.
So yeah. But introducing all, we got introduced to the names in the last issue of potential suspects. And they're all people that if you've read Green Arrow at all in the main universe. So Mia Jordan was the second Speedy, introduced in the Judd Winnick run, right? And here gets their own, working with Ollie. I like how they're using all of these different sidekicks that Ollie's had in the main universe to be like different business partners, right? Yeah. Or associates.
Yeah, well,
that he's worked with.
I mean, Mia's whole thing is that she basically called quits and abandoned Ollie because Ollie was still working with this guy who was accused of being with underage girls. And Oliver's like, look, I don't know if I believe that, but she's like, look at the evidence, look at this, look at that, and it really does play like someone who is refusing to believe it because it's inconvenient to do so. But ultimately,
he's cool to me though.
Yeah, kinda, yeah. But he also ultimately says that, okay, even if I'm willing to believe it, I can't just give up on him. I have to try and like help and do something about it, as opposed to just kind of cutting ties. So it's kind of getting into some of the, very relevant like thought process of how do we actually deal with people who were around that have done problematic things. And maybe Oliver is guilty of not doing enough, and that being something that is going to kind of weigh down on his history a little bit here.
Yeah, and I love how Albuquerque does the flat colors. Well, that's the colorist, Marcelo Maiolo. The really flat colors on the Albuquerque art for the flashback. And it's heavy greens and like the yellow. And Mia's wearing red, which is, I was confusing her for Harley a little bit at times because of the pigtails in her hair, and the red jacket. And I was like, oh, when did Harley Quinn show up? I was like, oh no, that's Mia.
Yeah, very washed out colors in the flashback as well.
But I do love how that works.
Which I also have to point out, like, this flashback takes place because they go to question her and she's having a boxing match and she says, I'll talk to you if you come in and box. And Dinah's like, yeah, all right, I'll do that. And her partner's like, wait a minute, what? You're going to go and box her?
Merlin. Yeah. She's like, I'm sorry, we don't. And Dinah's like, sure. And then the next panel is her stepping through the ropes. And I was like, man, absolute Black Canary rules. I like the cut of her gym.
Yeah, so that's the other thing, is Merlin's her partner, and she feels conflicted about that. She feels conflicted about the fact that she's still working to protect Hammond. I actually completely forgot that Hammond got his hand cut off last issue until she mentioned it. Yeah. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, that happened.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing, is that Hammond seems to be central to some of this, because when Mia brings up the underage girl stuff, Ollie kind of hand waves it, because of it's who he's been working with. And that's how Jubal is, and it seems like these, the uppity rich people have been a bad influence, right? That's how Ollie seems to be thinking about it, right? That's not who Jubal Slade was. It was, he's hanging out with the wrong crowd. So again, it kind of shows he was cool to me, so I do like that they bring that back around.
Yeah. I will say, when we get more of the boxing match, as Dinah's debating with Mia, I'm not entirely sure. It looks great and it flows very well from like a comic book perspective, but as someone who actually watches some wrestling in my day, I'm not sure how Dinah transitions from doing a spear into a power bomb.
No,
makes no sense.
Not at all. Pete, would you believe me if you said I got caught up on this page for like a couple minutes thinking about it?
But
because she looks like she's gonna get her into a gonzo bomb, not even a regular power bomb. Like, she's vertical.
Yep.
So that setup is completely different.
I took that as it's just sort of mid-lift, not so much that she's doing anything super special. But yeah, I could buy you like whipping out like sketch notepads and try to like map out what the move sequence is. Like, because even if you're going for a suplex, you don't grab from a spear position like that. Like if you're doing a Northern Lights, but if you're doing a Northern Lights, they're over your shoulder. So how'd you go from a spear to, like you said, to a power bomb pile driver configuration? That said, it looks really good because it's Albuquerque, right? Like, it's super gritty, And yeah. The big revelation here is that Oliver has a secret son that no one knew about. So Connor Hawk's name gets mentioned. I'm like, oh geez, we're ripping out all the names in this issue. And it's like, hey, he's the one who is going to inherit stuff. All this and this. So that becomes like, okay, we have to go talk to this Connor Hawk. And I think immediately Dinah and Merlin are like, oh, he's their number one suspect now, because whoever's doing this seems to be getting revenge. So it makes sense that it could be his son, if his son's like grown up and wants to avenge his father. Although, having said that, when they go and find him, he is shocked to hear that they're there because of who his father is, and he kind of hates his father, and he's surprised to hear that like Oliver's last thing was reaching out and saying, hey, like, I regret not being there for my son, yada yada yada. So yeah, he's kind of taken aback by that. So him and Dinah have a bit of a confrontation where she gets kind of physical and pins him against the wall. So
the way that he talks about it, where he goes, but now I need to collect my inheritance in Star City quietly, because I'd be in danger if his enemies knew about me. And he goes, his enemies, who even talks like that? Right? So it feels like he's very disconnected from whatever Ollie had been up to, right? But I fully believe that Ollie was an absentee father. with some of the other stuff that we had learned about him.
Yeah, I mean, they basically just say that he was, he was too young, so he just kind of ran away. He wasn't ready to do that, and it fits who Oliver was when he was younger for sure. There's a scream halfway through the conversation though, and Dinah runs off, and someone who's unknown, we find out his name later, but at the time he's unknown, has been arrowed to death. And would you believe it? And we get this great panel actually where this guy who's basically already dead gets arrowed again in the neck, and the blood spatter like goes over Dinah's eyes, which is a really cool panel because it's like mostly white and like muted colors, but this sort of bright pink for the blood. And then we get this full page spread of the Arrow Killer with his creepy mask on, mist around him, all that stuff. Looks really good.
He looks like a monster. I love it.
Oh yeah.
And there's a line that Mia says when they get talking about it, and they talk about this Green Arrow Killer, and she says, yeah, he's he's less Errol Flynn and more Michael Myers. Which that cracked me up because in the Absolute Universe, Halloween's a thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, that confirms that.
So I think that, but it definitely, he has that vibe. Like, it's less of the Michael Myers standing around, but just the sense of danger and him standing there in the shadows. Again, we talked about in the last one, it's very slasher villain, and that definitely goes in even more here. As Connor tries to shoot at him.
Yeah, Connor's basically like, anyway, I started blasting and take some shots. And would you believe it? The Arrow Killer fires off a shot that ricochets around a couple of vases in the room, and then hits Connor in the back of the shoulder. So he's probably fine. At first, I thought. But then the next page comes, and he starts like getting all sick looking in the face, and I'm like, oh shit, this was a poison arrow. He's screwed.
I forgot that was a thing that they had found in the last issue, was that when you get hit with the arrows, they're poison tipped.
Yeah.
So all he needs to do is graze you. Because I was like, why is he dying? Oh yeah, I forgot the poison arrow.
It's that,
like, he'll be fine.
It's that second.
Walk it off.
It's that second panel in the next page where Dinah's looking at him, and you just see him in the foreground, and you can see that his skin's all messed up on the side of his face, and you're like, oh shit, no, that's not just an arrow shot. There's something happening to him there.
Yeah.
So. And
then the Green Arrow Killer's like, you know what? Your friend was trying to kill me, so I killed him back. And I was like, you know what? Not false logic. you know?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting though that he wasn't even there for Connor Hawke. He was there for this other guy. No. And then the end of the book is basically they're putting him in the body bag, and Merlin calls Dinah and says, hey, I got a lead on where Roy Harper is. He's been digging up Oliver Queen's grave, which is a really weird cliffhanger to end on. But that's what we end on. So
and this Roy looks like because we find out too when talking to Mia that Roy is also a millionaire. Right, so this is not the Roy that we know, that he was the hardscrabble kid, whatever. And he looks like he definitely has spent his money on this fur-lined jacket that he's digging up Ollie's grave with. So that was a different thing of them adding here.
He looks insufferable. Let's just be clear here. He looks insufferable. I don't want to hang out with this Roy Harper. Yes. I don't know if I want to hang out with regular Roy Harper, to be honest, but I definitely don't want to hang out with this Roy Harper.
Yeah. I mean, look, his baby mama is the world-class assassin. He doesn't make good decisions in the main universe. I hate to see what kind of decisions he's making in the Absolute Universe.
I don't know. I can see the appeal. He's got a thing for dominant, scary women. Yeah. I can see it. He's like, punish me, Shiva.
He's on a knife's edge constantly. But the guy in the room was Edvin Zeidel, who the name does not ring a bell. His bodyguards were dead in the other room. So, like, what was he doing there with Connor? Too?
That's a good question.
Different.
Was he there to
different things?
Was he like I don't know if he's the attorney, but like, was he part of like the settling of the the will and all that stuff,
Yeah. And also in the beginning, we kind of glazed over that it opens with Dinah having a vision, kind of like a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. Yeah.
It's a nightmare of that body that they found with all the eyes on it, right, of the kid. And then when the Green Arrow killer takes off the mask, it's Ollie, and it's Ollie smiling, going, you know, I'm the hero here. And then what wakes her up is when he comes close, and then he has all the eyes on his face. So it makes this really grotesque monster image. And Albuquerque's great.
Yeah, speaking of the idea of the killer being the hero, there is a page of like the news talking about how a lot of regular people are rooting for the killer because he's going after CEOs of these horrible companies and people who, you know, and they've all been accused of doing bad things in the past. So this is actually a very popular serial killer. I'm like, okay, that part's very believable. I could see people kind of rooting for a killer who's going after people like this.
I mean, look, a certain billionaire recently said, and if this is, I haven't source checked it, had said that human beings consuming water is getting in the way of AI. So, I don't know. There was a real Green Arrow killer going around taking these guys out. I definitely think there'd be an applause section, you know? But I also like the graffiti that they're putting on these buildings. You know, it literally could be anybody, but it's like they're almost marking like the next victims, you know, of the Green Arrow logo, which I think is really cool. And like they've taken that Green Arrow investment logo and changed it a little bit to become the symbol. So again, I like that the writer, again, not going to butcher the name, which we'll have to figure out how to say it.
The Shot.
I wish they changed their name like what is it?
The Shot. We're calling him The Shot.
The Shot.
That's his name now.
That's right.
On this show.
I wish they had changed it like Ram V did, because Ram V knew. Like, they're not going to say the full thing. I'll shorten it myself.
Yeah, somehow I don't think Porn Sack P is going to have the same ring to it.
True. You're right. But anyways, I like that they're pulling in like kind of real world sentiment into this as well. It really just adds like a color and a texture to everything. You know, and makes it feel much more tangible.
I realize I'm calling them Shot because of the word shot's kind of in there, and I realize that it's probably Shote it's pronounced at the end, but the Shot sounds cool though, so that's what I'm sticking with for now. I mean, this was another interesting issue. I think the backstory of these people who were around Oliver, I think it's some interesting like themes that it's getting into by saying they've been accused of what they've been accused of. And the characters around who might potentially be the killer, but like I don't think we've met the killer yet, possibly, unless it just turns out to be Marilyn, which, you know, like I wouldn't be shocked if that's where they went with it.
It wouldn't surprise me if it ends up being multiple people, right? Like it's not just one, you know, because this trick shot of the arrow ricocheting and then hitting feels different than the last killings. You know, that were more straight ahead when he chopped off, you know, Hammond's hand and whatever.
That may be a bit too similar to a recent Green Arrow story we read, though, where there's multiple.
That is true too.
Behind it,
for them to run that back.
Yeah.
I definitely get vibes from Mia. I feel like Mia knows something more than she's letting on. You know, so there's some good storytelling there. Okay, so I found out how to say the writer's last name.
Oh, go for it.
Phonetically. It is P. Shet Shot. Shote. P. Shet Shote.
P. Shet Shote.
Yeah,
P. Shet Shote.
Yeah. P. Shet Shote. So.
I'm going to shorten that to Shote. Similar to Shot, but more accurate to how it's pronounced.
But Shote. Yes.
Yes, Shote.
But yeah, no, and again, Albuquerque's art, I can go on and on and on. It's so moody, and the way that it does the coloring different for the flashbacks, and then the shadows in the mansion, it made it feel like a haunted place. Yeah, you know, with the way that it's drawn.
Even when it was just Dinah and Connor Hawk talking, it felt like it was in a moody location before the action kind of kicked in. And then you also had the boxing / wrestling match, which it was supposed to be a boxing match, I think, but then it kind of. Yeah. They got a bit into it.
It escalated. It escalated.
Yeah.
Dinah tried to put the Tiger Driver on, and that was it.
Yeah. It's not offering a boxing match. He starts throwing Tope Suicidas into the mix. But hey, if it's time, it's time.
No. My gosh, imagine Mike Tyson trying to tope. That would have been the end of things. A flying Tyson.
Oh dear.
Uh.
Just he flies and then the ears also flying alongside him.
Yep, that's it. Also, if the Flying Tysons are at that circus and Batman had adopted Mike Tyson, that is an Elseworlds I need now.
That went in an interesting direction. Yeah, no, I mean that's absolutely Green Arrows, but is kind of fascinating. The fact that it's more of a Dinah book and it's just kind of dealing with like the history that Ollie's left behind and all this mysteries left behind. It does feel like it's building some interesting parallels and some reveals. And all of this being centered around the idea that Dinah's forced to work for one of the villains, but is already doubting it, is already feeling like, oh, I'm working for a bad guy. I've got a feeling she's going to learn more about the sort of things that he's actually done by the end of this, and that's going to turn her fully into some kind of, rebel, vigilante, whatever you want to call her, when she makes that turn.
Yeah. Because, we already see how what's the word I'm looking for? How she feels like she's like a bad person for working with him, and right, like there's this edge to her that she doesn't like, but she also wants to do what's right because the guy's, the killer is killing people, whether it's deserved or not. She seems to very much take the stand of, I'm here to protect people and I'm going to do my job regardless.
Yeah, at one point she criticizes,
so I do like that confliction.
But when she's debating with Mia, and Mia is like giving her shit, she's like, oh, let me guess, I mean, what do you do to like fight back? Do you refuse to buy products from one business, which just means you're giving more money to another business, and you're just not willing to accept that everything's owned by the same 5 shitty people? Like do you think your posting on social media is making a difference? And it's like, okay, we're hitting some big ideas here that are very relevant today. I'll be curious to see what the final kind of points that are made in this story are, and that may make or break like how successful it feels in the end, honestly. But I appreciate swing's been taken at the very least. So yeah, it's good to dare greatly, because again, this ultimately might not land, but the fact that they're trying, and is this a mini? Is it like Manhunter was, where it's a mini originally, and then if it does well, it'll extend? I mean, there's no way for us to know that, but I mean, it's always been supposed to be a limited series. They've never said ongoing for this.
Limited, okay.
So whether that's 6 or 12, who knows? Because
then by then I definitely feel like we'll start getting closer with issue 3 on where it's going and how it's going to go. But it definitely is it's definitely a Dinah book with Ollie as a side character, which I do like because his presence is still around despite him being dead. The story is so weirdly centering on Oliver Queen. Yeah,
I wouldn't even say he's a side character. I'd say it's more he's the he's like the mystery. He's the backstory, the MacGuffin almost. So it's interesting stuff. I mean, they've solicited issue 5, so we'll know in a couple of months if it gets an issue 7 for November. Then we'll know it's maybe going to 12 then. But at least for now, it's proven quite interesting. So, what are you giving Absolute Green Arrow issue 2?
What is an 8.5?
I think I'm just going to go with a straight 8. But yeah. Good stuff, though. Good stuff. Batwoman issue 4, Greg Rucka writing with Danny on art. This is kind of a big deal because this issue kind of explains a lot that it was maybe confusing before.
Thank God.
Yeah. So and it's an interesting twist actually that's revealed here. So basically, like, so Renee got stabbed by Batwoman at the end of last issue, and that was kind of a big shocker. It's like, what the hell's going on? She's killing people willy-nilly. Big reveal in this issue, and Renee knows it right away. Like, she's with her dad and is like, hey, that wasn't Kate. Like, Kate's not the one killing people. Kate is in that mental hospital, and she's never left. She's not sneaking out. She's not being Batwoman. Someone else is pretending to be Batwoman, and it's the most obvious twist ever once you know that, because Kate has a twin sister who has issues with split personalities. So there is a new personality in Beth who now thinks she's Batwoman, and that's who's been going around killing people.
Because she's not Alice anymore. She's Batwoman. Yeah. And yet she's still deadly like Alice was. And now it's definitely a... Because I love what Rucka has done with the concept of duality with Batwoman. Because at first it was just it was just Kate and Batwoman and how to make those two sides go. And then you introduced the concept of her sister that she thought she had lost. And then you added the Alice of it, which was, you know, it wasn't a long mystery, but playing us like, could it be my twin sister is Alice? And now we have that Alice thinks that she is Batwoman. And Kate, meanwhile, is in a mental hospital trying to get better with whatever she was been dealing with. God, it's so good. I'm so glad I stuck with it because I think we were both kind of on our. This book was on thin ice.
It was, you know, I think the last issue was better, but it was definitely not hitting the ground running like most Rucka books do. But this one kind of like solidifies everything into place, and it's like, no, okay, here's what's actually going on. And Renee goes to Kate, and you know, there's a whole heartfelt breakdown from Kate of why she's there, and like, you know, her guilt over thinking she killed her sister and all the rest of it. But she checks out, and by the end of the issue, it's like, no, she's got her own batsuit on again. She's with her dad, she's with Renee, and they're going to go and try and find Beth, because they're, you know, it's not that difficult to figure out who it is once all things click in place. And even the villains who realize, well, this can't actually be Batwoman because Batwoman doesn't kill. Well, maybe it's her. Maybe our actual chosen one, the one we want to do the whole sacrifice and, you know, stuff with, is actually just back. Our queen is returned. So we're going to try and get her. So yeah, but we see this great this great page that just sort of like solidifies what's going on, where Beth is looking into the mirror, taking off the Batwoman outfit, but it's all fractured, and like parts of it are Beth and parts of it are Batwoman. It's like proper stuff, and she's even talking to herself in the mirror, and like you've got like the different speech bubble colors coming from each person, like the one in the reflection versus her, convincing herself that she's Kate. It's good stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It's just it's really interesting.
Well, and the scene ends with her having a breakdown. It's like, I don't want to be you anymore. I never wanted to be you.
Which I guess I should maybe clarify there. I keep saying that's Beth in the mirror. I guess maybe more specifically it's Alice in the mirror, just to be precise.
It's Alice, yeah. And that this is almost like, this is telling me that this is just a new version of Alice. That Alice has now become this fake Batwoman. And now Beth almost has Beth at like not as a prisoner, right? But making her do stuff that she doesn't want to do still.
Maybe.
You know?
I mean, it could just be a third personality. It could be more that she is more Beth than she is Alice, but she's still like Alice is still talking to her, and it's what's causing this kind of rift here.
Yeah.
But either way, like the idea of the sister who already had this type of problem having a new personality, and that's who this new Batwoman is kind of an interesting thing. But yeah, the villains kind of figure it out just by looking at the footage and be like, we never caught this. We see fake Batwoman, that's what I'm going to call her for lack of a better term, loading up her guns to get ready for another night on the town, putting on her mask. But then we get, you know, the reveal that Kate has checked herself out of the hospital and that she is with Renee and her father, looking at her outfit. Full page spread at the end. She's in the outfit. The real Batwoman's here, and they're going to go and get her goddamn sister. So it's a good call to action at the end. It's a good reveal and a good call to action. It feels like the story's kind of clicked into place, and it's definitely made me more excited for the next issue. So,
yeah. Also, it's just hilarious that Beth has become Batwoman's own Red Hood. Right? It's instantly more compelling than the story that kicked off Red Hood. Right? That she has this Batwoman using super lethal force, right? Using her name and her symbol, but it's actually just trying to usurp her identity.
Yeah,
so,
Red Woman.
But yeah, I'm so glad. Like, it's Danny's art still is kind of hit or miss, but when it hits, like the mirror pages, it really hits.
Oh yeah. The mirror pages are good, and actually in the Batwoman outfit is good, but some of the regular people pages like really don't work for me with Danny's art. I just don't think that it works. But you know, it's a taste thing more than anything else. So your mileage will vary accordingly.
Will vary, yeah.
But you know, this was definitely like a nice turning point in the story where maybe they kept this reveal an issue too long. Maybe this should have been an issue earlier, perhaps. But this point doesn't really matter because we're past that point now, so who cares? But
yeah, it definitely strung us along long enough to now that I am fully invested. and what the hell is going on. Because I am a sucker for Greg Rucka, and he's also doing the crime Bible type stuff too. And with you realize like the surname Cain, the whole mark of Cain, all of that type of stuff, and what he's gonna do with like the sister relationship. Like I have so much trust and faith in him as a storyteller that I need to know where this goes.
Yep. All right, what are you giving Batwoman issue 4?
This is a straight 8.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think the art's still maybe holding it down a little bit, even though there are some pages that are quite good in Danny's art. I don't think they all necessarily benefit from that style. So, yep, there we go. All right, every month on Patreon, you can make me read a book, one of the higher tiers of your choosing. And of course, I'm back here to Outsiders, Adventures of the Outsiders, you might even say. This is issue 36, which I hadn't written down because I couldn't remember it. So, last issue, they dealt with Hitler, and they dealt with the other stuff in Markovia. This issue starts off still in Markovia, and the king is like giving them all medals. Like the full first page is just a full page spread of him starting his speech, and then it's like a 2-page spread for the next page with a title. There's the 6 of them lined up, waiting for their medals. And there's a fun bit here actually where you get like a page where it's just like 6 panels, 1 per character, and it's basically just all of their thought bubbles of what they think about their medal. And Halo's like, oh, this will go great with my overalls. Like she's just thinking it from a fashion perspective. Rex is like, oh, Sapphire is going to be so impressed. And then Katana's like, well, honor comes from within, but I appreciate the gesture. And then Geoforce is like, oh, this is an honor. Yeah, this is my country. I love it. I love it. Give me a medal. I'm so proud of myself. Looker's like, this is just the beginning. My ascendance to greatness with my new looks is perfect. And then Black Lightning's like, medals are fine, but the lives are saved and what matters. I just love how all 6 of them have very different like reasons for what they think about the medals. It's just a really nice touch. But basically the King Gregor's like, hey, you know, you've split from Batman, haven't you, team? Why don't you officially become like the defense force for Markovia? You know, we could do a lot of good. We're trying to raise Markovia back up after all this, you know, all this trouble we've had. And I think it would be great for you to like be our peacekeeping kind of team. And they asked to like think about it. And I was getting some red flags here. I'm like, look, for as well-intentioned this is, it feels kind of weird to be tied to a country, regardless of who the country is and what the intentions are. But they're thinking about that. Windfall is going to see her old teammates who are all in cells, and New Wave is like, you're a traitor, don't talk to me. And it's making Windfall feel really bad. And Halo comes in almost like a villain and puts her arm around her and says, don't worry, we're your family now. And I'm like, you might be ignoring why she feels bad right now, Halo. I don't think you're quite getting to the center of what the problem is here. But there's some comedy because the king's getting married and like Geoforce gets into an outfit, but he ends up bursting it all with his insanely good physique / powers. It's a whole thing. They're crying watching the wedding, yada yada. But Windfall skedaddles off panel, and Halo's upset that she's just disappeared because Halo was convinced she was going to join the Outsiders, and she didn't. She was too conflicted, and she left instead. But you know, Katana tries to cheer her up. It's a whole thing. Katana actually arranges a surprise party for Halo when they get back. So she's all happy with that when they get back. The others, they get back to Gotham and meet up with their loved ones, Sapphire for so-and-so, right? This issue is very much a set in the table issue where it's putting a lot of the characters in the places, but it also sets up that they actually do accept the Markovia offer, but they're not going to be based in Markovia. The whole idea is that they go around doing things, but like Markovia is kind of backing them. They're actually going to be based in LA, right. So they're moving to California. That's kind of what the end of this issue gets to.
So Prince Brian needs to get them diplomatic immunity.
Diplomatic immunity. So yeah, there's some nice touches to comedy. Like Halo's wearing a shirt that says the Outsiders went to Markovia and all I got was this stupid t-shirt, which is a really specific shirt, but hey, whatever.
Yep.
Sapphire's happy to move to LA. She's excited about it, so that's all fine.
Of course.
The ones that cause a bit more trouble, though, because again, we're going through like a page each character here dealing with their personal life. Geoforce goes to his girlfriend, Deniz, and she's kind of upset about it and thinks she's been abandoned. And she's upset because she loves him, and he's like, hey, I don't want to stop being with you. I still want to see you. And the scene actually ends with them embracing and going behind a closed door. And you just hear like the panels once the door's shut of, hey, Deniz, you should take your glasses off now. It's like, okay, they're banging. They're implying there's sex happening.
They should have just put squeaky mattress sounds.
Like, I'm just saying, he's got an unfair advantage to the rest of the human race because his powers can literally cause vibrations. So, you know, he's operating on like fourth dimensional sex, okay? Right? Everyone else can't keep up, right?
You think? I was going to make a very tasteless Tara joke, but I remember she's supposed to be a child, so I'm not going to.
Okay, yeah, in this part of the timeline, probably, yeah. She's probably still a teenager. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she was still hooking up with Deathstroke.
She was, but
so do you think Tara?
I mean, that was problematic, though. Yeah.
Very problematic. But I was going to say, do you think that she rocked his world?
I mean, her powers aren't vibration based, though, right? She moves Earth.
They're rock based the same. I mean, she is a descendant of Markovia.
I know, but she always moves Earth, though. I never got the sense she's causing vibrations. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, this is you. You've put us on a smutty direction. How dare you? So Looker, though, or Emily, or Leah, which is what she wants to be called, but Emily goes home. She's mad that her husband's bought plane tickets for them to go back to where she got her powers because he's hoping they can reverse it. And she's like, no, this is who I am now. Why would you do this? And he's like, I want the woman I married. So they have enough of a fight that while she said before she wouldn't join the Outsiders permanently because she wants to stay with her husband, they basically have, like, not a breakup, but they're kind of agreeing to be separate for a while here, at the very least, because when she shows up for the team when they're all leaving on the boat to go down to LA, she has a tear in her eye as she explains that they've agreed to spend time apart. So, yeah. But yeah, they get quite heated. She slaps him in the face and everything when she, because she says, oh, all these other men would be delighted to like have the opportunity to be with me, and he says, oh, are you going to go find them now that I'm like not happy? And she just slaps him across the face, and they stand with their backs turned. It's a very soap opera kind of sad scene, but you get the point across. They've been building to this for several issues at this point with his dissatisfaction of who she's become. That he wants the wife that he married, he wants the woman that he fell for, and not this model that's walking around that she's become. It's an interesting story. I don't know like how deftly it's tackling the idea, but there is something here about the idea of like it's kind of like someone who's got plastic surgery to change into like the more traditional idea of what pretty is, and the person who was with her is like, this was your choice, but like this is not who I was attracted to, it's not who I fell for. So how do you navigate that? It's kind of maybe something that should break them up in a lot of ways, because she wants to be this now and he wants her to be who she was, and maybe that is just a rift that can't be. So I mean, it is exploring something for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, they're going down a big boat down to California for whatever reason. I guess they fancied a cruise, but they're going on a boat, and they're all meeting up. They've all got summer clothes on, waiting for this. Emily shows up to join them. There's a joke where I think Halo says to Katara, do you think the boat has MTV? I don't know if they had cable on ships back in the 80s, maybe.
I mean, they would have had satellite, right? Like satellite was like a ritzy thing.
Yeah, I guess. So. Yeah, maybe they would have had. Yeah, and that's actually the last line of the issue is, do you think they have MTV? Because I guess Halo's still a teenager from the 80s through and through. Yeah. So yeah, this was a good issue. It was very much setting the scene for what's coming next in this transition. But it was kind of nice going through each of their character individual stories for a page or two and seeing how this affects their personal life, them moving to a new place. But it still kind of feels like, okay, we did a Markovia plot. Now we're going into like, okay, what are the Outsiders now without Batman? And the answer is West Coast Outsiders, seemingly. So that's what it's doing. But yeah, it was a fun issue though. I enjoyed all their different reactions to getting medals and stuff like that. But obviously, it didn't have any action scenes this issue. Not that I missed them, to be honest, but it also didn't have any crazy, frozen Hitler clone or anything like that, you know? So, take that for what you will.
That would be a strike for me, because I like seeing that type of wildness.
But, we have to calm down a little bit occasionally. So I'm happy to give this issue a nice solid 8 out of 10. The art is, been pretty consistent with what it is, and all the expressions and the melodramatic scenes with the married couple fighting all come across really well. So the art's, pulling its weight quite happily, for sure. Maybe it's overdoing it a little bit with the Windfall being sad about, everyone thinking she's a traitor from her old team. Like, that's, really over the top, I guess, but not in a way that's distracting or anything. It works. So, there you go. That is Adventures of the Outsiders. So another Patreon book I'm doing this week, so I'm still catching up because obviously we had that week off last month on Unplanned, is The Last God, issue 3. So this is the fantasy book, which I don't know if Tyler's just trying to punish me by making me read a fantasy book. I mean, obviously the art's very good, right? The Federici art is, stunning. But god damn, every time
and you're getting Philip Kennedy Johnson's story.
Which is true, although it's not always great, as Book of L has made me quit.
Yeah, this book seems to have way more in common with the Book of L than his Warworld did.
Yeah, so, which is great news for me. So the book basically goes between two timelines here. It's the timeline of when the king and queen met for the first time, and they're on their journey with the elf-like woman, although it's not called elves, they're called Ilven or something like that in this. And it's also doing the present day stuff with the slave who kind of worshipped the previous king Tyr, although Tyr's gone now, and he's working with the queen and again this Ilven lady to maybe go into the Black Stair again. Although the reveal this issue is that there's a prophecy that there would be a pretender that the queen thinks means him, so she tries to bench him later in this issue. Honestly, though, other than that, it's mostly just some world building stuff this issue. There's not really a lot of advancement in plot between the various things. It's there's this kind of okay, why do all the poor people hate the king? Because the slave doesn't understand it.
Because he's a king.
And but he did good things, and the others are look, the king took their crops and their money and their men to build stuff and fight wars, and didn't really give a whole lot in return. So yeah, the poor people don't actually like him, or didn't like him very much. So there's a little bit of a learning curve there for that. And you see kind of how desolate this small town or village is they're going through. But they're trying to get to this tower, which they're actually trying to go to in the flashback part of the story as well. And there's monsters jumping out in the flashback in particular, and the elven woman's kind of firing magic at it, and the art here is gorgeous, right? The monster looks fantastic, all the teeth and all that. And there's a bit of a twist where it's actually it's mourning its dead young, and that's why it's attacking them, because then there's other monsters that show up and it actually attacks the other monsters, and the elven woman's able to kind of or it's not the elven woman, the future queen is able to kind of calm it down and kind of talk to it and sing to it. And it's kind of that moment where they realize, maybe this woman who's just a farmer's daughter might actually be important. So it's kind of hinting at the story as to why she ended up becoming a queen, beyond just maybe Tyr being attracted to her and marrying her. Is there is a reason why she ended up being important in her own right, aside from Tyr, who is this warrior, because they went to the Black Stair together, even though the story is a bit of a lie to an extent. So that's kind of the flashback stuff. And then the present day stuff, when they're on the way and there's this big bridge going to this tower. This is where the queen tries to bench the slave, who's now just a warrior, and says, you'll stay here. And he's like, nah, screw that. I'm just going to go on my own to the Black Stair, even if you don't want me to. And she's like, no, you can. The prophecy says that you're going to actually lead to the end of the world. At least the way she interprets it anyway. It may not actually be him, but because of the crown he was wearing the day that he won his freedom, she thinks it's him. But they find a skeleton of a dead mother and baby on the bridge that's been sort of sitting there seemingly for a while because it's all decomposing. And what the hell is this? What's going on? It's been there for quite some time. And yeah, they kind of try to figure that out. But as this is happening, it's like a trap, or something's trying to lure them in. The sky goes red, and the demonic entity that's behind everything kind of morphs out into this kind of almost like a dragon shape, but like the head's more of a snake, if that makes sense. Where there's big wings and like a central body, but then just this one sort of tentacle kind of head coming out at the front. So again, the horror style art is very good. I can't really fault that. And this is the big cliffhanger, really, is that it starts smashing the bridge apart, and I think it's the queen who falls off or maybe it's the warrior actually, who falls off the bridge during all this chaos. And it's pouring down rain, so there's tons of atmosphere through all this, which is really pretty to look at. But yeah, I mean, this is the third issue, and I had the same problem with issue 2, where the book started, and I'm like, okay, who was who, and what are the names of these characters? Like, I am not retaining any of that issue to issue. Like, I vaguely remember the 2 timelines, and I remember them meeting for the first time in the flashbacks last issue, so that's kind of continuing here. And you know, Tyr, the future king, did kill her dad because he'd been corrupted by the demonic, you know, zombie virus, or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, so there's some big pretty stuff by the end of this. I wouldn't say it advanced that much plot necessarily in the grand scheme of things, but it's hard to tell how much pacing is, like, you know, is this good for what the 12 issues is going to be, or am I going to feel this is a little bit too decompressed if I do keep reading the whole thing? That's up to Tyler. But yeah, so it's like, it looks pretty, and there's some nice moments here or there, but yeah, it is super fantasy, and I'm having a hard, whenever they start talking about character names or the age of this or the age of that, or like the history of this world, I am just kind of like, I have to like fight myself to pay attention to it because I want to just fall asleep. Like, that's like how I feel when I read stuff like this.
It leaves you wanting the Book of L. You're like, at least I care. At least I care about the future of DC timelines. You know?
To an extent,
this is just an amorphous fantasy realm, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. I mean, I don't even know what to rate a book like this, to be honest, because obviously the quality is quite high in a lot of ways, but I just don't like the story, so I'll give it a 7, I guess, because the art is gorgeous.
That sounds fair. Yeah, that's very fair.
Best I can do. Alright, that'll bring us on to the final part of the show, where we pick our favourite stuff of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, favourite art, and of course top 5 books. So Matt, what is your panel / moment of the week?
Okay, so there's so many absolute Martian Manhunter.
Yes.
God, it's just full of them, right? However, Batman had that fighting sequence with the Ojo and him that was done without dialogue and a lot of sound. And it's very cinematic. And when it comes to moments, that's something that I'm looking for. So that's going to be mine, is that the fight between Batman and the Ojo.
Oh, that's good. I also like in Batgirl, the kind of the realization that this one girl's like got multiple personalities. Like, you know, like I like that kind of like series of like understanding that. That said, though, I am definitely going with the 2001 Space Odyssey like fetus moment. Like, I just think that moment is really good from like a creative art perspective, and just like, yeah, what it's doing. So that is my pick. All right, for cover of the week, a couple to shout out here. I'll give a shout out to Sebastian Famura's variant for Absolute Martian Manhunter, which is kind of him with his head over his hands, but all the colors are coming out of his head. This looks really pretty. Shout out to the Ryan
Big red
Sook
dot below him.
Yeah, the Ryan Sook variant of Batman, which is like all the birds in the foreground swirling with Batman just getting ready to fight. Nice inky blacks on that cover. I really like. My cover of the week, though, is probably the main cover for Batgirl, which is her looking up into the light, and all the flowers are coming out of her eyes, which are kind of like prison bars almost.
Yep.
It's just really stunning piece of art. It just looks really good and moody, and
really good.
Fits everything perfectly. What about you? I suggest you've got some like Poison Ivy covers to bring up.
Yeah, they're loading right now because I didn't have them open when I was talking about the book. Actually, there's one. There's a Novik. How do you say that? No Obovic. That looks pretty nice, but yeah, that name. But none of those are really sinking to me. But there's an Absolute Martian Manhunter variant by Andrew Robinson that's got the Martian in blue or on a blue background, and it makes like this psychedelic wave around John Jones. And it looks really cool. Like it kind of is the spirit of the book in one image. But my cover is from Batman, and it's going to be the Jorge Molina variant, and it makes it look like an old, like, Japanese, like Akira Kurosawa style movie poster, where it's got Batman with a sword, which he didn't have, which would have been cool had he did, in the foreground with the Ojo in the background, and then like a bunch of birds on like telephone poles and like a torii gate. It's really cool. It's very evocative. It's very pulpy, which, you know, I'm a fan of. So yeah, that's mine.
All right, cool. All right, what you got for art of the week?
So really, there's only two options here, and it's Absolute Martian Manhunter and Batman. And I think because of how much emotion gets put in through the art for Absolute Martian Manhunter, I'm going to give it to Rodríguez. Just because of, again, everything that comes through the art and what it means for the story.
Yeah, I'm going to shout Gabriel Hardman as well, because the art in Arcadia is fantastic, and it's kind of the main selling point of the book. That said, though, it is Absolute Martian Manhunter is taking this because it's so inventive, and it's also the last issue we're getting, at least for now, so it's like, I want to give it props because it is so creative and unique. So that is that. All right, top 5 books, Matt.
All right, number 1 is going to be Absolute Martian Manhunter. 2 is Batman. 3 is the Deadman. 4 is Batgirl, and 5 is, weirdly, as how this broke out, Book of L. Okay.
My number 1 is Absolute Martian Manhunter. My number 2 is Batman. Number 3 is Batgirl. 4 will go Absolute Green Lantern. And then 5, I would say, I'll go Supergirl Survive, I think, over Arcadia. But it's very close. It's very close between those two for that spot. But yeah, I'll stick with that. And keep in mind, we're not including the books we caught up on from the previous week, just in case everyone's wondering, why aren't you picking Absolute Flash, Absolute Green Arrow, or Batwoman for any of this? That's just why. All right, so cool. I'll tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. Next week we have Absolute Batman 22, Absolute Catwoman issue 2, Barbara Gordon Breakout issue 3, The Fury of Firestorm issue 4, Bleeding Hearts issue 6, Supergirl 15, Emperor Aquaman 19, Green Lantern Corps issue 18, Clayface Celebrity Dirt issue 1, and then some reprints and facsimiles, et al. So yeah, so I think Absolute Batman and Firestorm are the big 2 for next week, and then some other good solid ones for sure, but those are the 2 that I think are going to be the most exciting.
Breakout right behind it.
Yeah. So cool. We'll see how all that pans out. I mean, yeah, I think we'll both be trying that Clayface issue 1.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We love Basil Carlo.
So yeah, join us for that next week. But yes, that'll kind of wrap up the show. But of course, if you want to support what we do here and help keep the podcast coming, you can do that over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and help out. And you get some bonuses for doing so. A couple of classic comic reviews a month now. Currently Alan Moore Swamp Thing, and we're about to start Gotham Central, 1 issue a month of each. Plus we already did Batgirl Year 1, so you can go back and listen or watch all 9 of those episodes if you like. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. And of course, thanks to everyone who already supports us. It really does make the show possible. So thank you once again for joining. We do appreciate it. I said that already. I'm very hungry. I'm like desperate to go eat now. So thank you. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.